Welcome to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
Red, white, hence the gray jerseys. Great toss up top, wide open. And welcome to Lincoln, Nebraska, Dylan Arraiola. The touchdown on the first drive of his career. Elijah Judy pulls it in. So here's Harvard on second and long, going deep, got it out there. Spun made the grab. Was it in? Touchdown! It is! And that's the freshman, Ja'Cory Barney Jr.
Dylan turns, hands it off to Dowdell, left side, bounces to the outside, 40, 30, 25, 20, 15, 10, 5, touchdown, Dante Dowdell.
Your phone's kind of going off, but everyone was in the building, but my daughter's called me there in Omaha. Well, my daughter called me. She's in Omaha in school, and she's in the shelter. And I go out to Waverly Road, and my neighbors were certainly affected. And, I talked to some friends. I talked to Eric Crouch and a couple of people up in Elkhorn, and they were affected. So, but I was here, and obviously, we weren't directly affected, but, just a sad thing to see.
Good morning. Welcome into Hurrdat Sports Radio here on AM 590 ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. We're live on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla. I got to get in the stream here so you can see my lovely face along with the old DB.
Islands in the stream.
That is what we
Nah, I'm good on that one.
No,
this morning.
Not an Islands in the stream guy?
No. You said stream. That's the first thing I thought of.
I feel like we have to kind of acknowledge off the top here that it's a strange day to be doing a radio show in the state of Nebraska. Obviously, we had some crazy things happen over the weekend with the tornadoes and the devastation and everything. Luckily, it sounds like no fatalities in Nebraska. I know there were some in Iowa, unfortunately, with that same storm. So we are fortunate there, but I understand a lot of people are going through a lot of things right now. We have some ways that you can get in to help through Hurrdat Sports. There's going to be a donation drive at Hurrdat Sports Bar from 11 to 7 today and tomorrow. But we're mostly going to talk about sports here today. If you want to call in, you want to talk to people, that's great. 888-638-4876. We'll talk to you. If you just need to get some stuff off your chest, you're going through it. We'll be your therapy couch. But I think I should have talked to DB about this, but I think our best thing we can do is bring you the thing that you love every morning, like we do all the time. And like Coach Rule said, hopefully bring you a little bit of joy in a tough time. So I don't want to speak for you, DB, but
yeah, it was a total gamut of emotions, right? Yeah. Friday. And for me, and I'll just say this and move on, not in a super great headspace on Friday, and it started with just simply not really knowing what's going on. Mm-hmm. So that was kind of on me. Got a message where it was like, "Hey, you need to get the kids early." It's like, what? I'm in the kitchen, and so got them out of school. Caleb was already at home. Micah was waiting already, mm-hmm. So that had already been taken care of. So I got him at 2:35 and got Ryder or Zoe at 2:45, and then it just, it was what it was from there.
Yeah.
I thought it was, just 2 blocks either way. I'm looking right at a mess, right? Mm-hmm. We'll figure out whatever it is that's going on with our roof, but just to have so many people affected, whether it's either directly friends, a couple of aunts whose homes are devastated. It's just, it was crazy. And to hear, you could hear it in his voice when he talked about what was going on for that staff to kind of check on a lot of their guys, mm-hmm. real time, was incredible. 4:30 through 7 o'clock, everybody's checking on everybody, support staff, coaches, coaching staff. And I'm just thinking, that's pretty powerful. And I woke up about 1:30 and didn't go back to bed simply over the fact that I was just excited I just wanted to see Sharp.
Yeah.
Or like that was it.
Mm-hmm.
I just, a lot of people have a lot of things going on, and he was he was literally chomping at the bit to get to work so he could feel better.
Yeah.
It was just like this weird kind of cool vibe that came over me. I was like, you know what? Buck up, Buttercup. Like, get to where you need to be.
Yeah.
Like this your partner's going to lay it on the line for you. And I just was like, kind of dialed in, and I was so discombobulated. Right. I mean, Shane, I got on the interstate without my phone. I left. I'm in Lincoln, almost.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
So were the tweets that I saw, were they correct?
which ones? From the night or Saturday morning?
You looking for the whatever it was that you were looking for?
I don't know what I said. I was mad on Friday night, but so I had Ravi literally go to my house, gave you the garage code to get my phone and find me in Lincoln, which was unbelievable.
You called me.
So I appreciate that.
You called me at the perfect time. I was literally pulling out of my driveway when you
Yeah.
called me. I thought, and it was, you had your wife
No.
call me because obviously you didn't have your phone.
Yeah.
And so I like panicked. I was like, oh no, something happened.
Yeah.
And so I was like, I answered that phone so quick.
So that
I thought something was wrong.
I was like, yeah, I don't know. And I knew, she was going to have those guys doing their thing. And I was obviously going to go to work, but I just didn't want anything to happen, not be able to be found. So just a strange day. And then it was a little subdued. I know that was kind of your first time fraternizing in the
That's the first time
in the
I've been
press box
credentialed for a
and
Nebraska game.
and up there. And I told you the day before, like, I wasn't going to be super visible anyway. So I don't really know what it was like out there. I talked to Andy, and I talked to BC, I talked to Kendi, I talked to Tom Chattel.
Mhm.
And that was about it.
Yeah.
I kind of I hit out in the booth, talked to KB, and Greg had his wife there, and she's just an absolute joy.
Mhm.
And it was me, Courtney, and Jess, and that was it.
Hold it down.
It just seemed very.
It did.
And I didn't know if it was. I'm sure part of it was the weather.
Yeah.
Part of it is that this is the first time that some people got a chance to work with Greg in a long time. It's just a very interesting.
I thought the vibe of the entire stadium was a little subdued.
Were you concerned that people weren't going to show up?
Yeah, I was. Especially
we were too.
It was late.
Really late.
The stadium hadn't really filled in yet. I don't know if that was because it was an early game. I don't know what it was, but I'm sitting there and I go, yeah, I don't know.
And you were ready to say, I understand.
Yeah, for sure.
Right.
I would not have begrudged anyone for just being like, hey, I got other stuff I got to do right now.
I mean, did you? I went out on Cornhusker through the 84th Street exit.
Yeah.
Did you see that strip?
I drove
and just 5 minutes, to the west.
Yeah.
It was fine. That strip where the Phillips 66 is and those plants, I mean, that place was decimated.
Yeah.
Cars in the wall. I'm just like, the railroad, it immediately like, yeah, those quarterbacks did look at, oh, wait.
Right.
Wait, it's a mess out here.
Yeah, and it's, that's the vibe was very strange because of that. And it felt that there was a part of me at the start that almost felt guilty that we were there.
I used that word to a friend of mine. I said, I kind of feel some guilt.
Yeah, it's like, what are we doing here?
But
then Coach Rule kind of snapped it into perspective.
And I'm kind of like that anyway. People deal with stressors differently.
For sure.
So, and I've seen it with funerals. I've seen it with, some people want to be there. Some people don't want to be there. Some people want to play on days like that. Some people don't. So I try not to be like judgy McJudgy.
Yeah.
But I could only go by because my natural disposition is figured out.
Yeah.
Let's have fun. Glass half full.
Mm-hmm.
Let's go attack it. Sometimes that just isn't,
it's
not for everybody.
Well, and so you mentioned, it was my first time in the press box. It was the first time I've been credentialed for a Nebraska football game, which is
welcome to the big boys.
That's a really big deal for me. Like, I grew up here, like that was a big deal for me.
Yeah.
And so I was excited, but then I felt guilty for being excited because this thing that's going on in my state and my town and like this place that I love. And so it was a very strange moment there, and that's why I tweeted out what I did from the press conference immediately as soon as Rule said it. It was in his first answer where he goes, hopefully we're able to bring people some joy today after, obviously a really tough day.
And he had to get there was so much going through his head too. Yeah. And we talked about it during the broadcast. This is just it's kind of weird. I say that he finishes my thoughts and we kind of think, and whether we're talking or not, I could tell by his body language about a little ways through that scrimmage with once Bell and Bly Hill went down, like his whole mood changed.
Yeah.
And I told Sharpie on the broadcast, I said, that's the type of guy where his heart probably hurts.
Yeah.
Right. Like, cause he
hurts for his guys.
He's just he's just like that. Right. He cares a ton. Right. And it was just interesting to hear him tell Jessica, he said, my heart hurts for these guys.
Oh, for sure.
And you could just tell the whole,
it
was like the whole mood and
the vibe changed.
Tenor change. He changed the format. The clock was moving extra fast. Like, so for him to have the wherewithal and the composure to get back to the podium, and get everything out.
Yeah.
Because normal people forget some stuff.
Yeah. Oh, 100%.
He gets it all.
And he brought up obviously the injury situation with
Bly and
Bell. And Bell. I keep wanting to because Bly and Bell just sounds like, I don't know, I'm having a thing.
The law firm?
Yeah. They're gonna handle your divorce for you. Not yours personally.
I got a guy.
Me too. But he talked about it, and man, his ability to weave things in and out, right?
It's incredible.
So he goes from Fidone getting all this, every team in the country, he says, wants him and is trying to get him to transfer and everything, and he goes, he's a Husker through and through, and he's a loyal guy, and we're not worried about him. And he's like, but what I try and tell guys is everybody's gonna love you when things are going well, right? Like, where were all these people for Thomas Fidone the last 2 years?
And even Fidone knows that and has to regulate that in his own head.
And nobody was calling 2 years ago when he couldn't get on the field. Not even stay on, just get on the field.
Yep.
And then he brings it back to Demetrius Bell and Bly Hill, where he goes, where are the guys now when they're laying in there trying to figure out what's going on? They don't know what's happening next. They don't know what their career looks like moving forward. They got tears streaming down their face. It's like nobody's calling now. That's when we care, right? And that to me is such a microcosm.
It's a total Rule thing
of what his program is about.
Yep.
And it's why people don't leave, right? You're there. When he uses the term family, I don't think it's toxic because he shows up, right? He shows up for his guys when they need him, not just when it's convenient for him to show up, not just when he's trying to get them on campus, not just when they're the starting quarterback or whatever. We got a bunch of calls we can get to here.
And we'll get that Red Cross number, the text information too. But let's start with Asian Wyatt. Asian Wyatt, good morning, man. How are you?
Good morning.
Good morning. Sounds like my radio partner. She always goes, good morning. What's up, buddy?
What's up, Wyatt?
Hey, first of all, Damon, quit trying to get my girls in trouble at Brickosaurus. We want to go back again.
I was just jealous that they actually had the courage to do what I was chomping at the bit to do. I wanted to get on one of those things so bad.
I heard one of those tough hangs in the background just now. Wyatt, no.
I know. Okay. So
she cracks herself up.
I know. But I want to say, because back in 2019, we were in the flood, and our home was severely damaged. We were out of our house for a long time, and so my heart just really goes out to everybody. And because it's stress beyond stress, and this is it was, but it was it was before we had tough hangs. So, but and I'm glad you guys are doing something too, because it's whenever every little bit helps everybody. And at that time, listening to sports radio was a huge escape, just to get my mind off of overthinking constantly. So, and Damon, I was listening to you at that time, so I really appreciate that.
Yeah.
And again, that's it. Like for us, the flood, at least we were able to kind of prepare for it. These poor people, just in the blink of an eye, they start their day, and all of a sudden, by the end of the day, everything's just gone.
Yeah. But I appreciate it, man. Always been a class act, buddy.
I try to be with, not try to be a grown-up class act with a little one. But,
it's all good. You get a little grace, buddy.
We appreciate you, buddy.
Try to get them to say something besides no, but,
Yeah, I wonder where that comes from.
Wyatt, we appreciate you, man.
All right, thank you.
Thanks.
Next up, we've got our guy, Michigan Lance, wants to talk a little spring game here on the Hurrdat Hotline. Lance, what's going on, buddy?
Hey, good morning, boys.
Michigan Lance, what's up, buddy?
Hey, man. End of one spring ball down in Lincoln, starting the high school one here today down in Florida, man. So it's good stuff. Football all around.
He is growing like a weed, man. He looks fantastic.
Thanks, man. I appreciate that.
Glad he got his mom's frame on that side of the house with those long legs and long arms, man. He's stretched. Woo.
Hey, most definitely. Unlike many other fathers, I have no problem giving the credit. Hey, we're both in this thing together. I got no problem. He did get that from his mom's side, and there's things that he got from me too. It's both. Hey, I tell him all the time. Hey, man, you're blessed. You had 2 college athlete parents.
Yeah. Not
everybody can say that. So you have an advantage. And so thank the Lord for that. I'll tell you that, man. But hey, I thought it's funny. I'm watching the spring. I don't know about you, DB, but my kid has me watching games. Saturday was the first time he had me watching games different.
Mm-hmm.
Now we're going to sit there and watch a whole 2 hours. And so he wanted to watch it with me, so he goes to YouTube, and so we're just watching the highlight, right? Like, the 10-minute, 15-minute highlights.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, all right, let me try it his way. And I come to see it, I'm like, oh, this actually isn't as bad as I thought it was.
Yeah.
and so I got a lot out of it in that short amount of time. And so what I did see was Raiola, is really good as advertised, and I did see Harburg get better. He's a lot better.
Oh yeah, he was the easiest barometer to see because we knew what it looked like.
Most definitely, yeah, most definitely. And so, man, it's gonna be interesting to see what happens with him if he, wants to stay or go. For the simple fact of, hey, man, there's not a lot of reps guys can get at quarterback. You know what I mean? There's only one. And all the other positions, you can get a lot of reps at other positions except quarterback. So it'll be interesting to see whether he's okay with, because he came in probably not thinking, oh yeah, I'm gonna be the starter one day. Maybe he did, but not the way it's happened. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because wasn't he a walk-on?
No, he was scholarship guy.
Oh, he was, but he was a late scholarship guy though, right?
And the thing, and everybody kind of pegged him to play something different when he got there. So the reason I cheer, number one, his dad is incredible, like extremely good natured. He stretched pretty thin with track season and having to handle the family back home, but just his attitude, right? It would have been easy for him to just, if you have one foot out the door ready to go play another position, or people telling you need to play another position, to still get better at your craft when everybody's kind of hating to begin with, that takes a certain amount of resolve, right? Because it's like, no, I'm going to stay here. I'm going to stay here and develop as a quarterback.
Okay.
Well, I don't mean hating as in unnecessary negative criticism. I mean hating like discouraging the try hard.
Okay. Yeah.
Just go do something different. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
But he's like, no, this is what I want to do. Support that.
Yep.
I don't mean like the unwarranted criticism.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you have to be clear with that because that's such a loose term that we use all the time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so that's good to see. Like I said, whatever he chooses either way, whatever. But it'd be interesting to see what's going to happen.
He's easy to cheer for, isn't he?
Yeah, but yes, yeah, yes. And so, hey, I guess it's a combination. I text you about running backs, but after looking back and seeing it and what you told me, it's a combination I saw of the running backs and the linemen to where you were looking at the whole thing, and I was more worried about the start. What happens when the linemen fire off,
Mm-hmm.
and then what happens right after the running back gets the football?
Yeah.
And I saw better in all of that. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Now, I necessarily wasn't looking at the whole.
I took it a little next level for you.
Well, which is fine. I mean, listen, I'm that way too. But here's my thinking. This is why I didn't go totality, is because I know it's been a struggle position. I want to see the start get right first.
Yeah.
Before we start talking about anything else downfield.
Mm-hmm.
So getting the ball, reading the hole, and making a one cut and go, like those guys read blocks well.
Yeah.
And those linemen made blocks well. And so I'm like, hey, this is better. You're off to a good start. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
No matter who's it's against, no matter who you're playing against, like that guy broke that run, I don't know his name, down the left sideline.
Dowdell?
Yeah, now he's going to get caught against a Big Ten team. But again, he got the ball, he made the right cut, and got around the corner. Like, all that is good. You're headed in the right direction.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And he finished the run in spring, which you're supposed to do, which he should have done against that defense. And so that's how I'm looking at it, because I go back to fans now. It's a losing program. So we can't all of a sudden start judging everything. You know what I mean? Hey, man, there's steps to it.
Yeah.
Let's get the progression, the first steps right, and then we can continue to fix everything else.
I'm with
you. And that's what I saw in the Nebraska spring game. I'm like, okay, they're starting to get the basics right.
Yep.
And you'll have a chance.
Can't walk until you put one foot in front of the other, right?
Exactly. And so I thought those guys, I saw some coaching going on. I saw the improvement of the coaches with the players. And again, that's something to be excited about. So
appreciate it. Hey, best wishes with spring. Tell Langston. I'm a big fan, man. I'm cheering for him.
I appreciate it. Hey, man, and go Bears, man. We look good in that draft, man. I'm very optimistic.
Yeah, go Bears.
We're on our way, man.
No, you can end this call.
Go Bears. Do you want to try to sneak out of breath, Brian?
Let's get Brian real quick. Brian, you got about a minute here with us.
What's up, buddy?
What's up, Brian?
What's going on, fellas?
How we doing?
Well, doing pretty good. Doing pretty good. I wanted to start off with last night. Just this little statement. For all these old ball players trying to advance, it's all over now. Taken from the Ant-Man. That was crazy last night. The way he performed last night, the dunk, man, that was crazy. I enjoyed that game. I'm an Ant-Man fan. See, still a fan of Lakers, but I got to give props to good players. That man put the work in.
Yeah.
Also, speaking about people putting the work in, my takeaway from the spring game is, hey, I just wanted to see something simple. Like, the coaches show up to work. That's the number one takeaway I have from the spring game. You can see improvement.
Brian, we appreciate it. I'm sorry, we're up against the break. We will, if you want to call back, we're open at 7:45. Coming up next, we're going to talk to Michael Sevilla from the Let It Fly pod here on Hurrdat Sports Radio.
We will be back. 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 You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I would say we would always look for quarterback. I mean, if there's a quarterback that comes along, we would always take another quarterback. I think we have our starter sitting in that room. Let me say that. Okay, I think we have 3 guys that we believe in. But if a young player comes along or depth player comes along, we certainly, I don't go looking in the portal, but I also am not stupid when things come across to us. We're always, I look. Scott Fitter was the GM when I was in Carolina. He used to say, from the Seahawks, we're in on every trade, and so he just would explore everything. So, but I think we have quarterbacks capable of winning for us. And I think the quarterback play significantly improved from last season, and that's kind of where we're at.
We're back here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. Only sports show you can hear from state to state, or from one side of the state to the other on the airwaves. That's DB. I'm Ravi. Lulla. We're also live on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. Want to remind you real quick, today and tomorrow from 11 to 7 p.m. here at Hurrdat Sports Bar and Grill in La Vista, we will be collecting, it'll be a donation drive. We're collecting hygiene items, clothing, non-perishable foods. Those things will be donated to Heartland Hope and Project Intentional for distribution to everybody in need. Or if you just want to donate quick, $10 directly to American Red Cross, just text the word Red Cross, all caps, one word, all caps, Red Cross to 90999. That's Red Cross, all caps, no spaces, to 90999. That will automatically donate $10 directly to the Red Cross, who is spearheading the relief efforts in Elkhorn, Waverly, Blair, Bennington, everywhere that's been affected by the tornadoes on Friday. Joining us now on the Hurrdat Hotline is one Michael Severe. He hosts the Let It Fly podcast and is the executive director of the Jet Foundation. Michael, what's going on, man?
Oh, just walking. Hey. Yeah, go ahead.
I know you're walking. You may have to sit still for a second. That wind is kind of whipping.
Is it bad? So I can move. To.
You may have to take 11 minutes and chill.
So you asked me to stop. You know my dog doesn't like to stop. I'll tell you that right now.
Tell Mando I apologize.
Dude, you look great, man. The lumberjack hat and the beard, man.
I'm gonna try to switch over to just the microphone on the phone. Does that sound better?
Yeah, you're good.
Or no?
You're good.
You guys hear me?
Yeah.
Hello.
Can you hear us?
Damn it, that made it worse. Okay.
Sounds better on our
still now.
Hey, how you doing? Is that good?
You guys hear me now?
Is that good? Yep, I can hear you. Can you hear us?
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Hello?
Michael.
Can you hear me now?
Michael. Yes. Yep.
Man, hello?
Shane.
Shane, fix it. Hello?
Shane, can you hear us okay?
I'm getting back in. Hold on.
All right.
All right, we'll try this again in a minute here.
Always fancy pants, man. It's okay. He's that's the type of dude that brush his teeth and like going to the bathroom. Like just chill for a second.
Yeah, I'm not trying to do that. I try not to have my mouth open when there's poop particles in the air.
Okay.
I think that's a pretty
all right. My point was he tries to maximize his
my
time.
point was sometimes it's counterproductive.
I want to talk about fecal matter and particles. You there, buddy?
I'm here now. I tried to switch to the microphone on the phone and figured maybe that would be better, but
we got to maximize your time, man. I want to go back to something we talked about on your Let It Fly podcast, where we talked about so many young wide receivers. Was that the place where you saw, like, what did you see when you looked at that group in total?
You know, I've been saying that I thought this is the best and deepest wide receiver crew they've had since going back to 2013, 2014. And I was lucky enough to be in an elevator with Kenny Bell, who obviously was on those teams. And he said 2013, maybe they were close because Quincy Nunn was still there. But he said 2014, Nebraska's deeper. They are. And like we talked about, Ja'Cory Barney is this electric kid who we all hoped that Nebraska would eventually get when they brought in one of these guys, and they've missed on so many. But I think this is the one. I think this is the Tyjon Lindsey they hope for. I think this is the guy, and he's going to make a ton of plays while he's here at Nebraska. And then they have size, right? Naylor's big. You know,
it wasn't disrespectful to Banks. It's just when Naylor catches the ball, he's just different.
No, I'm just saying. I know that a lot of people look at Banks and I think because of his pure size and just how he looks off the hook, you know, they wanted Banks to be the number one guy. But certainly, I think there's 4 or 5 guys, and look at you get down to the 5th guy, and that's Alex Bullock, right? Who can make some plays for you. So yeah, they're as deep, and we talked about it. Quinn Clark's going to come in eventually. They lost the Demetrius Bell, which sucks, but they got 5, 6, 7, maybe 8 guys down the road that can play for this team. Again, going back to 2013, 2014 to be something like this.
Real quick, because we're trying to maximize the rest of the 5 minutes we got with you. How about Lloyd's development? You saw us play a lot his senior year.
Yeah.
How about a testament to how hard this dude has worked at his craft?
I tell everybody, and I know his mom was the head of the daycare where my kids went to school, and so I watched Jalen when he was 2 and 3 years old, running around CSI. He's only really played, this 3 years of true wide receiver. What they did before he got there, that was not wide receiver play. And what he's become, the catch he makes on that little over route where he goes up and gets his hands right, is a late turnaround too. The ball's a little early.
That was a tough catch full speed.
Yeah. Especially when you're talking about a guy who, again, hasn't played full-time wide receiver more than now 3 off seasons. So, yeah, it's incredible the develop he's had. The true athleticism he has, speed-wise, you just can't comp that as a secondary. And I felt so bad for number 12, who I originally thought was some walk-on guy, and then later we find out that it's Jalen Dobbs back there doubling up, He's crazy, and I didn't mention him just now, right, when I was going through all the guys. So it shows you just how deep they are.
Michael, real quick, want to switch to the draft. Were you surprised at all that? Well, I mean, first of all, how surprised were you about Bo Nix going 12? And then secondly, were you surprised that it was like 4.5 full rounds after that another quarterback didn't get taken till?
I was more surprised by Penix only because of the Cousins contract. Just nobody does that. It's one thing to have a guy who's in his career maybe on 1 year left, like when you look back at what Aaron Rodgers was. This is different. This is a guy who just signed it, not even really in the building yet, he's getting paid a ton of money, and you're saying we're going to take a guy at 8 when you have a team in Atlanta who's favored to win the South. You can bring in a really talented player right there, and instead you bring in Michael Penix, who, again, I know you like him, and I think he can be a successful quarterback, but in that situation, that's not healthy for anybody. No matter how nice Cousins is, no matter how nice Michael Penix is, Damon and I talk about it all the time. There can only be one. It's a Highlander thing, man. There can only be one Highlander, and that's the way it works with quarterback. There's no quarterback 1.5. There's quarterback 1, and so it's not going to be healthy for them. But you know what? I hate the Falcons, so I hope it falls apart miserably.
Hey, my man will look dead at me. He's got the best one-liner. QB1 is different. That's all he'll tell me.
Different, man. Different.
Let me ask you something. Could I make the case the most improvement was had by Harburg, the most consistency was had by Raiola, and the best throw of the day was made by Kalen?
Oh, yeah. So I thought, and Kalen's done that, right? We've seen that before, especially in like 7-on-7 or warm-ups. We've seen him make whole throws before.
The 2-minute drill where he threw the corner route to Lloyd was arguably the best throw of the day. It was incredible. Lloyd hadn't even thought about coming out of his break.
They could have truly helped him out by calling a timeout at 40 seconds.
Oh, I know.
No, he had not. But I mean, how about calling a timeout with 40 seconds left so the man actually has a chance to finish the 2-minute drive? I mean, what are you doing? I know you're trying to set up a field goal to get a guy to offense, but come on. This guy's trying to win a job. He's got a 4-minute drill. Draft-wise, that's one of the favorite offense with the Steelers. Your Steelers. That's probably true. I mean, I'd have been pretty upset too, especially Patella. How weird is that? I just want to say about the Steelers, dude. I've said to you since I've known you, I love the fact that they will sit still. They occasionally move. It doesn't happen a lot. They will sit still, and talent falls to them because they've got great scouting. And it's amazing the way they can just sit there. That doesn't always work. Lyman Sweet didn't work out, but most times, guys that follow them end up becoming really good players. It's a miracle what they can do. And I'm so done with the Eagles. They're ridiculous. They're like a cheat code. Harry Roseman is making trades and working on levels that nobody else is working at. You look at it, what the heck? They got both the guys I thought they'd get in the first round, right? I thought that maybe Quinyon Williams took all of them. I thought if not, they got both guys. And then later in the draft, they just continue to compound. Now, they brought a guy in who was kind of a developmental guy who I saw at the Senior Bowl, who I thought, oh, man, that guy's athletic, but, he's playing at a lower level. And they bring him in. I think he's probably going to work. He's working at a ridiculous level as a general manager. It's not even close to anybody else.
That's Michael Severe, host of Let It Fly podcast and the executive director of the Jet Foundation. Severe, we appreciate you joining us for a few minutes this morning. Enjoy the rest of your walk. And tell Mando he's a good boy.
He's a good boy. He's a good boy. You're a good boy, right, Mando? You're a good boy. Yeah. What's up, Mando? See you guys. Sorry about that.
Appreciate you, Michael.
With a 12-minute segment, you miss out on 3, and it goes in a hurry.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry about that.
Shane, hang it up. Thank you.
He's busy laughing, watching the dog. Shane's watching the dog on
we
video.
will be back with more Hurrdat Sports Radio coming up next.
We will be back. We will be back. will be back. We will be back. You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
I'm not going to compare the guys. I don't know if I can prepare to do that. I think the thing that Dylan has done really well this spring as a young player is sometimes young quarterbacks can pass on. He's kind of covered, whereas Dylan knows the ball's supposed to go there. He's going to throw it there, and if he throw it on his back shoulder, he'll throw it where he needs to throw it, and then trust those guys to go make those plays. You can't play quarterback and receiver. You can only play quarterback. And so you've got to throw the ball away from the defender and let the guys go make the plays. And so I think all of our quarterbacks have done that, but you saw that today from him. And I thought that was to your point, that was a big time catch. Making that the four verticals to Bullock. That's the kind of something like, I think we do pretty well. We're a pretty good four vertical team. I think later on when I was up in the TV booth to hit Borkacher on one down the seam, I think Heinrich did. So we do that well, but the in cuts and control in the middle of the field is really important to us. And I think one of the major keys to that, Mitch, is throwing the ball below the chin so that the ball is in a catchable space, but if there's a tip, it's not up in the air. That's what happened on the triple slant interception, right? The ball is a little bit behind, a little bit high, in the red zone, tips equal picks. And so to me, we're just constantly evolving those areas, but Dylan has a great feel for that. And the thing he does is he just trusts that the ball's supposed to go there. I'm going to put it where the defender isn't and let the guy make a play. And those guys made those plays.
Wrapping up hour number one here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. We're live on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla here on the Pillar Exterior Stage, and we're brought to you by the Omaha Supernovas. Make sure you get to supernovas.com. There's only one home match left. That's on May 9th. It's a week from Thursday. Make sure you get out and support your Omaha Supernovas in their last home match of the season. Meanwhile, on this upcoming Saturday, you can watch them on CBS Sports Network. That's national TV. Go to supernovas.com to get tickets, to get television information, everything you need to know about your professional volleyball franchise here in Omaha.
Huge reference to those intermediate passing game with the in cuts and holding the seam. If you want to be able to run the ball, you have to be able to control the intermediate portion of that defense, soft middle.
You got to be able to keep the eyes of the linebackers and
most
safeties, right?
Young quarterbacks and most offenses don't want to put the ball there
because it's scary. There's a lot of guys, a lot of traffic,
lot of balls.
It's hard,
a lot of bodies.
Harder to read too, right? Because there's a lot more bodies in there. You don't know who's open. You don't know. Well, you maybe don't trust who's open. You don't trust what your eyes or your progressions are telling you.
You know how guys don't get hooked to curl? They don't think you're going to throw it.
Yeah.
And if they don't have to get hooked to curl or low hole, deep hole, it's hard to run the ball.
Yeah, it really is. Let's hop back on the Hurrdat hotline. Apparently, everybody wants to talk to us this morning.
That's good.
We've got Jay on the spring game. If you want to call in, it's 888-638-4876. Jay, what do you got for us this morning?
Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning. What's up, Jay?
Hey, we had a great sports weekend. Let's say that for myself.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Unless you're a Lakers fan, but it's okay.
Definitely love a lot of Lakers fans, but I am not a Laker fan. But I'd say this. The spring game was perfectly boring outside of the injuries, right?
Yeah.
I don't even know what I'm going to do with myself with all of, this pattern of angst that we're supposed to have when our quarterbacks step back and throw, even the small 5-yard passes. I don't know what we're going to do with ourselves as fans when we complete all of the little 5-yard passes with smooth accuracy from all three quarterbacks. Let me say that. Not just with Dylan, but even 10 looked a lot better. The athletes on the edges look a lot better. Like, yeah, man. I mean, like, this is calm optimism you're hearing. Like, this is like, okay, we look like, and I've been hearing this statement from you guys as well as the coaches in the interviews, like we're almost playing football, man.
Yeah.
On the offensive side of the ball, people are handing balls off, hitting holes, and making passes smooth, like they know what they're doing. And that's a good thing to see. So I'm excited about that. I'm not going to drag it out and say that, just to say that we're going to play football this year, Damon Benning, and the country needs to get prepared. You know what I'm saying?
It's like I said, it's
Nebraska's back.
It's hard for me to like quantify it, to pit it against last year or how they're going to do this year. The only thing I've been saying all spring is it just looks a lot more like football. I know it sounds like it. It looks like it. So I think that's where the optimism. Now, they may still only get to 7 wins, but it looks like football.
It does. You saw what you see is how the RPO could have worked, right? You see it. You see it develop, and it looks smooth. Like, again, looks like football. Second thing, I got a question for you all. In the midst of the NBA playoffs, and they are electric, why don't we talk about more NBA on local radio? Now, granted, I think, being diverse is great, but come on, man. The statistics show no one truly cares about hockey. A very small percentage of the United States watches baseball. Very niche group. But the top 2 sports in all of watching, are basketball and football. Football first, basketball second. So NBA has to be, and in a town where, come on now, we are a pseudo basketball town here. We got crazy. Nebraska's on their way back. I'm just saying, we got guys in the league. We got consistent now for the last 5 or 6 years, consistent Division I college basketball athletes. They're building basketball complexes all over the state. I just would say that if the NBA is a goal to some of the athletes that touch the soil here in Nebraska, I think we need to give them a great snapshot of what it'll look like in the coverage for the NBA. Everybody loves the NBA. Did you see Ant-Man? Did you see Ant-Man?
He's
Okay. Enough said. Athleticism at its finest versus weird eye adjustment after watching a white screen for 4 hours. I'm just saying, let's be real.
You talking about watching hockey or watching Yellowstone?
Whoa. Hey, Damon Benning, for the record, I had nothing to do with it.
I listen. I wouldn't go there. That was Ravi, man.
That was Ravi.
I was making a white joke.
Hey, Damon, to make everybody feel safe, put both of your hands up right now on the screen. Hey, we don't know where Ravi got that take. You know what I'm saying? we were referring to hockey. I don't even know what
was
the
it me?
It was where I got it. It was right here. It was out of pocket. There it was.
Jay, I appreciate the call.
We
should have Jay lead our focus group because you know me. Like I would talk about
I love
NBA. If people want the NBA, that is no problem. We do most of our talking about the NBA in between segments.
Yeah. Like, oh man, did you see that? Yeah. I appreciate Jay. Listen, I would love to talk more NBA.
If you guys want it, we'll do it.
Yeah, give us a little more.
It's not like it's not in our wheelhouse.
Yeah, I mean, there's not a ton that is. Although I do, hockey's a Something I'm still working on.
It's so beautiful.
No, I really like it. It's just, to me, honestly, it's a bandwidth issue. Like,
you only have so much capacity.
Yeah, and like hockey, I didn't grow up with hockey, and so it was always on the outside. I was like, oh, that's cool. Playoff hockey's fun, but it was never one of those things that like got into the inner circle.
That's fair.
And then I feel like, man, it's too late.
You give me the go ahead. I don't want to stretch you, but there's nothing more exciting. It's the only sport that can make 1-0 exciting.
No, hockey's
when
great.
you Edmonton and the Kings, you were like on the edge of your bed.
I get how compelling it is, and I just don't understand it or follow it to the degree that if I'm talking hockey out here, you're gonna like hockey dad's gonna be jumping on my back or whatever and be like, you know what you're talking about. It's like, yeah, I don't know what I'm talking about. Honestly, that's a lot of what I'm afraid of.
You don't want the
is the gatekeeping.
Yeah,
right.
I got you.
It's like, okay,
somebody used that term earlier. And it was very fitting this weekend.
Let's get to TK. Wants to talk a little bit of O-line. Surprise, surprise. TK wants to talk O-line. I'm shocked.
Surprise,
TK. TK, what's up, buddy?
Good morning, fellas.
What up?
How we doing?
We're good. Did you enjoy your meal?
It was good. It was good.
You don't have to tell me you loved it, but it's I'm honestly
there was a hesitancy there. I heard it.
I mean, it was a 7 at best.
Okay. He had Indian. Come to my house. I make good Indian now.
The yogurt was good.
I thought that was Greeks. I thought that was Greeks.
So,
oh, that's a deep cut.
That's how you know he listens every day.
Yeah. So, very quickly, the offensive line I thought looked all right. I liked their mentality. It was very obvious in both watches that there was no getting down on themselves. There was a very aggressive mentality. Some of those young guys are just going to have to get more reps.
Yeah.
Because in the pass pro, it was rough with late blitzers. It was very hard for some of those guards to get off of a down lineman who they were helping in the center with to get to linebackers. There's some foot speed issues, but I like their aggressiveness, and I am super excited to see Justin Evans on those quick screens out of the backfield, because from what I saw from him, he was pretty elite on Saturday.
TK, what 5 would you roll out there with?
From what I saw,
Ben Scott.
I would go.
He didn't play, but Ben Scott.
Well, the tackles and the center are a given.
So Ben Hart, Scott,
Prohaska,
Teddy,
Prohaska.
Okay.
Evans.
Yep.
And then I liked what Mazuka put on there on the field.
People are afraid to be critical of him because he's started before, but he's got some work to do.
He wasn't very good in pass pro.
Yeah, he's got some work to do. It's okay. I mean, we got to be able to be honest.
Yeah, he wasn't great in pass pro, and that's concerning since we didn't have any of the really, really good guys out there on defense. But Latowski, he looked all right. I think his feet are a little slower than Mazuka's.
What would you do with Jacob? What would you do with Hood?
Put a bandage over him and bubble wrap.
Yep. Just hope he.
Because he looked really good when he was able to play at like 100.
Yeah.
But there was very quickly I think he twisted up his ankle, and from a guy who knows about what it's like playing with weak ankles, it's rough. You're not going to be able to jump back when people come to the outside of you and then try and jump into the inside, which is unfortunately the biggest thing that tackles have to be able to do is to fight people going back inside.
Yeah.
TK,
good stuff,
we
TK.
appreciate it. Good stuff on the O-line there. We will catch up with you soon. We appreciate the loyal listening and the deep cut jokes as well. More Hurrdat Sports Radio coming up next.
We will be back. will be back. We will be back. We will be back. You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio. Here is the sports editor for the Omaha World-Herald, Sam McKewon.
That's fine. That's fine. That's fine.
Sam McKewon.
We're gonna throw the ball, and you just stand back there and throw it where you want to go. And that kind of thing.
Sam McKewon.
Are you guys going? Sure.
Now, Sam McKewon.
So here's Hurrdat on second and long, going deep. Got a man out there. Spun made the grab. Was it in? Touchdown. It is. And that's the freshman, Ja'Cory Barney Jr.
Kicking off hour number 2 here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities, live on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, on the Pillar Exterior Stage. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla. We're joined now on the Hurrdat Hotline. Been a busy phone morning today with our guy Sam McKewon of the Omaha World-Herald. Sam, how are you?
I'm great. How are you guys this morning?
Good. Sam, I usually always try to come see you. You walked by me in a blur. I was standing out in front of the door. No, it's not your fault. I wasn't anywhere in your sight line. I was by the booth door, and I saw you blow by real quick, and I was like, I'm going to go catch him. And I was like, I don't want to be amongst it. I just was going to say hi from afar, but I know I usually try to catch you. This was interesting, though, because I felt like Coach Rule, every time he has a press conference, there's obviously some takeaways, right? He tells you what you need to know.
Yeah.
How big or minor or much of a microcosm do you think his stance was about Fidone? Because there was a ton in there, right? Because, Fidone hasn't always been a fan favorite. He's received a little criticism. He stayed with it. He knows that he's been courted amongst a few other guys. Like, what did you make of his opportunity to kind of describe the Fidone thing? Because I love the fact that he kind of went to bat for his guy hanging in there for family.
Yeah, for sure. And Thomas also described, his passion for Nebraska too. So it's obvious that, Thomas likes to wants to be with Nebraska and all the rest. I think, as it relates to Fidone, I think there's so much potential still there, obviously, and he had a nice start to his career last season, the real start anyway, and so I think Rule just wants to remind people. So a strategy is emerging, okay, in the way that Rule wants to use NIL and the way that he wants to build his program. He wants to have a high degree of loyalty to players who are going into their 4th and 5th and in some cases 6th years in the program, and he wants to use NIL to keep them around.
Yep.
So that they're the culture keepers. Simultaneously, he's got a huge group of players, and they may all stay, like, through this portal opening. They're not going to stay forever. Like, some of them are going to leave eventually, probably in December or maybe even next spring. But so, like, he really wants to take the 21 to 24-year-olds and really pour into them. And so I think he's trying very hard to send the message to the younger players of, the guys that I'm going to hold up and exalt in the program are the guys stuck around and are with us for a long time. And I think he's not just talking to the media in that moment. He's talking to his players. Because I think it's talking to the media and talking about the tampering thing. It's a Saturday. We're busy. You say that another day, and somebody might just say, okay, well, if it's such a big deal, then who's tampering with him? And you don't want to have that conversation. Like, that's not. So the point he was trying to make was to his players, and he was kind of using the media to do that, and that's fine. I don't think he really wanted to get into a big, long discussion about which schools are, trying to get Thomas Fidone. That would have been a discussion a different day. But yeah, I thought it was a good topic.
You could see where I like what you said about the use of the NIL and the culture keepers. You could tell their greatest, and I've said this from day one, so I like to, maybe I was hearing what I wanted to hear. His greatest skill to combat portal and money and free agency is to make this a place. He wants to make this place family. Like, it's so good here. You shouldn't want to go anywhere else. Like, you can see the strategy.
For sure, yeah. So I think there's certainly a culture that he wants to build. He does have the facilities in which to build it, right? So they've got nice stuff too. It's, so you've got that part. It's not just a bunch of good people, but there's good stuff. The winning needs to come alongside of it, because there would come a point where you can't blame a kid for wanting to go to a winning program. Nebraska does need to win. Like, the winning does need to come along. But I think he feels like that's going to happen. So it's not something that he has to dwell on much at this moment. Yeah, I think that's the strategy that has emerged. Now, again, there's more guys on the team than are going to play. And at this moment, I think everybody's going to stick it out maybe a beat longer than they normally would, because they kind of like what the guy's doing and they kind of want to see if they're going to fit in. But there will come a point, again, maybe it could be in the next couple of days, but more likely in December or next spring, where there's going to be 7 to 10 guys that are, freshmen or sophomores, and they're like, I'm not going to play. So, you'll see that move on, but I think for the time being, they're able to keep it together because it's a fun place to be a part of.
Sam, I'm curious, and we'll get to quarterbacks here in a second, but I'm curious if there was any large takeaways you'd like to make from the spring game. I know we try and downplay whether it's important, whether it's not, whether, how much it matters, how not to overreact. But is there anything that you just walked away with, you go with positive, negative, or otherwise, that you felt like you actually learned something?
Good perimeter blocking at times. Good interior line blocking on some of those inside zones. I thought the backs ran downhill. They weren't trying. There wasn't a ton of dancing. I appreciated Emma Johnson's, I think, first run of the game. It was only a 4-yard run.
He slammed that thing in there, didn't he, with a burst?
Yeah. I like a good 4-yard run when you need 3, and that was that. So I think you have a tone setter. I thought Dowdell had a couple of nice runs. It was a Mazuka that bent back that one run for 15. So they seem to be reading that particular play well. Hard takeaways for defense. What I wrote in my rewind today about the defense is, seems like they got a lot of guys who are kind of the same size. They're maybe a little undersized, and the group that was out there was a little inexperienced. And so I felt like what you were watching were guys that didn't quite exactly know where they were going, and at times the offense knew where they were going, and sometimes when that happens, the offense, I thought, kind of took it to the defense physically a few times. And as your defenders learn more about what they're supposed to do, they'll look better doing it. The defense is a little undersized, and I think they're comfortable with that because they're going to be a speed group, and they're going to get it done that way. I still think there are teams, I don't know exactly which ones, that are going to, like Michigan, that are going to say, we're just going to put 2 tight ends out there, and we're going to ram it down their throat for 2.5 hours, and at the end of the game, they're going to be tired because they're just not as large as we are. And I think that's something they're going to have to continue to work on, because I think there's, it's a great defense and a neat scheme. They're just slightly undersized because they're not going to get in those battles for those, top 5-star defensive tackles. I don't think they think they're going to win those battles anyway, and they're just not going to get in them as much. So as a result, they're a little smaller. But those are the takeaways I had other than the quarterback.
Sam, do you think that's part of the reason they want to play so many guys on defenses to combat what you just talked about with the Michigans of the world or the Iowas or whoever wants to kind of pound it down their throat, and they go, okay, yeah, the first line of guys might be tired, but we're going 23, 24 deep here on defense. We've got fresh legs for you pretty much at every – is that how you combat the physicalness of a team like Michigan or Iowa?
I think that's fair. Yeah, I think that's a reasonable – it's probably a discussion, to be honest with you, that's slightly above my head. I think Tony White has in his mind all the things that they can do. And let's be honest, they had a good run defense last year. Mm-hmm. So statistically, their run defense was fine. Again, there's certain components of any defense. Like if you're an offense and you're looking at the defense, short of 2011 Alabama and 2009 Nebraska, you're going to have ideas about how to attack. And so as I'm thinking about how I look at Nebraska's defense, that's the things that I think about. Most teams don't want to run the ball 40 times against that kind of defense because it's a pain in the butt. Because they're gonna get you behind the line of scrimmage 4 or 5 times in the course of the game and put you behind the chain. So, yeah, I mean, I think there's probably things about that defense that is hard to stop, and then when you're just a little undersized wherever you're at, if the offense knows what it's doing, they're going to play with more of a leading edge. That's why your experienced guys, even if they're a little undersized, need to know what they're doing. And a lot of those guys didn't play, so that's why maybe the defense looked the way it did.
I think, Sam, what do you think about this? I'm looking at this is a really good case study for everybody, the fan base, the recruitniks, the coaching staff, with the defensive backs, the secondary, because generally speaking, it was like, gosh, they have a ton of numbers and they've got a lot of good pieces and young athleticism. So you need to get to the development piece, right? Then it was, okay, hey, we're going to need some depth. Then the coaching staff has a very consistent theme. Coach White said, if you want to play in this secondary, you need to be able to, you have to start with the 2 T's, toughness and tackling. Then, you get to the football IQ and athleticism. Coach Cooper is a flat-out dog back there. He's constantly talking about toughness and being the hammer and not the nail. When you look at this young group and you're kind of watching it evolve, what story do you think we'll be telling in 8 months with accruing bodies and development as it relates to playing in that secondary?
I think you're going to see that a lot of guys can play, that they've recruited that position well. I think that's been a pretty keenly recruited position, in my opinion. They've got they've got guys that can do a bunch of different things. They've got some size. I think they've got speed. I think they've got toughness back there. It's going to take some time, I think, to figure out who's going to emerge and play 50 snaps a game.
We
among the
kind of
young
took
players.
Phelan and Omar Brown for granted.
Right. Those two guys. And then, again, Hartzog and Buford are going to play a lot. Hartzog certainly is now. I mean, he's with Blyhill being whatever that injury is.
I was hoping to see him play that field safety. I hope some young corners can emerge.
Yeah, it's possible. It's going to be challenging.
I know.
For somebody to come along, unless they can add somebody in the portal, which they may very well do. I mean, I think they have the flexibility to make that happen. So, I think there's going to be, it's just going to take a long time, a little bit of time to figure out exactly who's going to be where. I watched the spring game and, one of the numbers wasn't right in the roster. People thought Rex Guthrie was getting beaten there on the deep throw to Jalen Lloyd, and that wasn't the case. And I don't even think Rex played the game.
People found out in a hurry. Nebraska fans take the spring game seriously. It is a very difficult broadcast to do. You have to really get in there and be in the weeds, man. It's a tough broadcast.
You mean Elijah Judy didn't catch a touchdown pass on Saturday?
Stop it.
Well, yeah.
It's just hard, man.
A little different, but
it's just hard.
There was a couple circumstances where it felt like DeAndre Barnes was on the field a lot, and I think he did some good things. Again, it's a lot of numbers, like you said. They obviously need a fall camp to figure it out. They're going to have to. They're probably going to get a good deal in the first two games. So UTEP and Colorado are both probably going to throw the football quite a bit, and so those defensive backs will get a nice workout. They're going to play teams during Big Ten play that are not going to throw the ball.
Yeah, because they played without Giff, Hartzog, and Singleton.
Mm-hmm.
Those are probably their starting 3 free safeties. Now you can utilize Buford in a couple of different spots. Maybe if you move Hartzog, but we did an exercise last week. If you're going to play in the low 20s by UTEP, which is what I've been saying, 8 of those guys you think would be in the secondary. It sounds like a low number, but it might be hard to get to. Right? I'm just kind of doing the numbers in my head.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to play 8 D line. You're going to play 8, 9 D, and I'm including the Jack D line. You're going to play 5 or 6 linebackers. Subs. Like that secondary is going to have to, and no better teacher too, because I just, and I'm biased, right? Full disclosure, like I love Coach Cooper's mentality because he's a tough guy, right? He's not flash and dash and all this cutesy stuff. He's like, listen, man, you it's a messy place, and you got to be tough in that defense. I'm excited to kind of watch that group unfold because they're going to have to find some fellas.
They are, for sure. And who's the third game? Northern Iowa? I don't know what Northern Iowa's going to do. There's going to be some teams that Nebraska plays next year that are going to be heavy run. But they're also going to play, USC's going to throw the ball a lot. I expect UCLA to be heavy run with play action off of that with their quarterback.
Wisconsin will be interesting.
They certainly want to throw the football, so they'll probably throw it some. I think Purdue is willing to do whatever it takes. I actually like a lot of the things Purdue did last year. Their schedule was too hard. And then Rutgers is, and I watched their spring game too. Rutgers is probably going to run the ball a lot, and Rutgers is an interesting team if you want to watch another spring game.
They're going to be good.
They are, and they're similar teams. They're built on very similar ideas. I think the head coaches have different personalities, but I think if you got Matt Rule and Greg Schiano in a room, and you said, "Tell me your top 10 principles," I think most of them would be the same. And Rutgers might be a little ahead in some areas of Nebraska, and that makes sense. Schiano's been there for 5 years. They may be a little bit ahead in a few things, even though Nebraska beat them in 20 and 21. If Rutgers' roster has improved, then that'll be an interesting game when they come to Lincoln, because I think they will take Nebraska to the wire. It'll be 17-14, something like that.
Sam, got a handful of minutes left here with you, so got to move over to the quarterbacks before we let you go here. Let me put it to you this way. Who outperformed your expectations the most on Saturday out of that group?
Interesting way of putting it.
I like
I think,
that too.
Yeah.
I like that.
I think my answer's supposed to be Harvard, but I'll be honest.
I mean, whatever your answer is.
What do you mean it's supposed
to be? Doesn't have to be my answer.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I'm supposed to say, Harvard surprised me. I think what he did was fine. I think he did a nice job. I thought Dylan did a good job based on everything that was all the eyes on him and all the stuff that had been said, which I'm sure he's heard. The fact that his family is watching all that, and he knows. I mean, he's an aware kid. He knows he's wearing all that, and he has to go out there and deal with all the attention. And I think given all those things, I think he did pretty well. I think he should feel good about the work that he did. It wasn't perfect, obviously, but some of the things that it pleased me about Rayola's work is that when he threw the ball to the sidelines and he got it out quick, the balls were where they needed to be, and he threw a nice pass to Hall, and it kind of brought Hall back inside where the hole was that he could run into, and I thought he handled some of the. I thought he handled the second throw to Alex Bullock nicely, the corner route, and I thought that the ball that he fired the first ball he fired into Bullock was a good throw, and the one he threw to Barney was a very good throw and a gutsy throw, and things that you have to do in this sport in order to move the football. Heinrich Haarberg had a very similar throw, and it wasn't on target. So I thought Rayola handled himself well. And I think he deserves some credit for having done that as a true freshman, 18-year-old, not having the advantage of running. So if you go back and watch the Adrian Martinez spring game in 2018, I think he ran for 100 yards and nobody could touch him. So it was kind of like, that looks good. Dylan had to do all that just throwing the ball, and that's pretty good. Like he didn't have the luxury of running around and not having anyone touch him. So I thought he did a nice job for all the variables considered.
I think I'm most impressed by the fact they have the right mental makeup in that room. The character and quality of people in that room for what goes on in this state and how they're all a similar age it's revealing itself, right? They just keep getting better at their craft, and that's really all you can ask until meaningful Saturdays roll around. You just have to keep getting better, and that they appear to be guys that are attacking the competition.
Oh, absolutely. And I thought Danny did some nice things on the 2-minute drill.
I'm telling you, I would make the case. He may have had the best throw of the day, and there were some doozies.
Which one was that?
It was the corner route to Lloyd during the 2-minute drill, where his anticipation and his timing, it was a great read. Lloyd's took 2 more steps, that ball's in the air before he even thought about coming out of his break, and it was right there. Right there.
Yeah,
it's a tough throw.
Yeah, I think Danny identified things quickly. He also identified the throw to Barney was a bad throw and it was incomplete. But I think Danny identified things quickly. I thought Harper's a good kid. I like Harper a lot.
Me too. He's a guy I would hang out with.
Yeah, it's pretty evident that he's a good guy. Really got, took so much abuse physically last year in the game.
Mm-hmm.
And on some level, I think maybe he's ready to stand up for himself a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Say, hey, there's a moment where a quarterback, and I think Dylan probably has this, where he's able to say, that ain't what I'm here to do. And I think Harper just did everything he was asked to do last year, and I appreciate that. And I think the coaches could have put him in slightly better position. And I think this spring that's happened. And so I think he's reaping the results of the fruits of better development from a quarterback coach on hand.
And it's a little early, but the trend is definitely in the right direction. And I don't know if Coach Rule's going to be an I told you so guy, but it appears he made a pretty good decision with Coach McGuire. Those guys are better, and it's a guy that's had a great spring we don't even talk about. He got back in the room full time, and he looks good in Bonner. Like, Coach McGuire appears to be really good at what he does.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure he is a good coach. I think they have good young coaches. I think Ravi Voracek's a good coach. I think they've got they're teachers. I think rules demand that they're really good teachers. And one thing I don't think you would ever question with Garrett McGuire is just commitment to finding the best way to develop his guy.
Yeah.
Like I think he's the son of a coach. I doubt that McGuire is like trying to do anything other than getting better at his craft as it relates to his job. And so like I think he would, and the other advantage is he has a lot of young guys in the room. And so it's not like they're going to have some sort of preconceived notion about what it's supposed to be like. I think Jalen Lloyd's gotten better. I think, I think Corey Barney obviously brought some things to the table when he got here, because that's a pretty good picture that he presents on the field. But, he's I think doing a good job. Again, it's a good team. And if you put the schedule together, it looks like a team that should win some games. Now they just got to go do it, and healthy. They got to stay healthy. Like,
yeah,
they can't really afford many more. They can't afford any injuries to the running back room. Emmett Johnson, he's a dependable kid. He's a good kid. Put bubble wrap around him. He can't get hurt. Got to keep him healthy. Got to keep Dowdell healthy. There's things he can do. Can't assume Gabe Irvin's coming back from the hip tear. 110%. So you got to keep Dowdell healthy for the short yardage stuff. So hopefully they can keep healthy there. That's important. And they got to keep healthy at tight end. Fidone and Borchert got to stay healthy because those are their two best tight ends clearly. And those two guys should have nice years if they stay healthy.
Sam McKewon from the Omaha World-Herald. Sam, we appreciate your time as always. We'll talk to you next week.
Take care.
More Hurrdat Sports Radio coming up next.
We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. will be back. We will be back. You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
Yeah, I made them all warm up, like Keese and Giff and Ty and Nash. Those guys didn't play. I told Tommy not to, and then typical Tommy Hill, he's out there the whole first series playing corner. He just said, let me get a series, coach. Let me get a series. And I'm like, all right, go get a series. And he's out there. I love that guy. I love his competitive nature. Bryce, Ben Scott, and then other guys who played in, we kind of set numbers for them. Hey, let's get this guy 3 series. Let's get this guy 4 series. It was hard at wideout because we're thin, right? And then once we lost D-Bell, we're really thin. Jaden Doss played 2 ways today for us. I don't know if you guys noticed that, but he played corner and played wideout. So, Jaden's a guy that we think is really, really special, and we're just trying to foster a bunch of different talents for him.
We're halfway through the show here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities, live on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, on the Pillar Exterior stage. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla, and we are brought to you by the Team Jack Foundation. Obviously, we had our event postponed on Friday night that we were supposed to have here at Hurrdat Sports Bar and Grill, the Team Jack Live. We will try and get that rescheduled for you. But in the meantime, the fight to fund a cure for childhood brain cancer continues. Go to teamjackfoundation.org to get involved, to donate directly, to see what projects Team Jack is helping to fund, and seeing what events are coming up next. All the ways you can get involved, teamjackfoundation.org. And, of course, as soon as we get that Team Jack Live event rescheduled, we will keep you posted on that as well. But teamjackfoundation.org is how you get involved. The Jaden Doss thing is really interesting on 2 fronts.
Okay.
Because, number one, the fact that he was working in with the secondary tells us a little something about what we said on Friday. Doesn't it? That maybe the secondary's not as deep or has as many answers.
Well, I feel like we've been kind of broaching the secondary topic for
a little while,
a couple of weeks now.
Yeah.
Right. And I would kind of be joking, and I'd say, well, gosh, if they're getting vertical with all these pass catches, like, who's defending these guys?
Right.
You know what I mean?
There's another side of that coin.
So, go ahead. The defensive, you do see him in blue jerseys in practice, which means he's flip-flopping.
So there's 2 things that I think are at play here. Number one, if they didn't need him and the secondary, he probably wouldn't be flip-flopping, I would guess. That seems like a reasonable conclusion to make there. And secondly, if he was in the position he was last year in the wide receivers group, he probably wouldn't be flipping. At this time, or I guess preseason last year, because I don't remember if he was in spring last year or not, but this time last year in the fall camp, he was the one freshman receiver that they were talking about playing, right? And that kind of
ahead of
Lloyd
Malachi and Malachi.
Lloyd, ahead of obviously Demetrius Bell, who ended up redshirting last year. Hopefully, he gets healthy back quick here. But so this guy who was ahead of everybody else. Now, I'm not saying he's behind now, but he's at the point where it's like, maybe he's a guy who we can use on the other side of the ball to maximize his ability. I'm guessing if he was in that top 3 or 4 group in the wide receivers, that wouldn't be something they're doing.
Hey, what's the number you need, do you think, at wideout? Because we always say top 3 or 4, but it's so much more than that. It's really like a top
8 to
6
10
or 7.
Is 8 to 10 too many? Or because you're going to play 6 to 7 regularly, right?
10 would be fantastic.
Right. But you're going to play 6 to 7 regularly.
Okay.
Right?
So
I would like to have another 2 to 3 past that.
Okay, 6 to 7 regularly.
So you've got Banks.
You've got Bullock, Banks,
Nair, Lloyd. That's 4.
Coleman,
who we didn't see but feel good about.
Bonner,
who we love again. That's 6.
4, 6, 8, 12.
Yeah. Yes.
So that's kind of your bare minimum number, right?
I got to be missing one.
I'm going to look at the roster here real quick. What do we got?
No, so you got, I mean, I could tell it to you. So you got Banks, Nair.
Oh, Barney. Forgot about Barney.
There he is. That's it.
Barney's
that's
definitely
the
playing.
one. So that's 7.
That's 7. So you feel okay there. You would like, depending on the 1 or 2 more, depending on the extent of the injury of.
Yeah, I mean, if you're in 10 personnel,
yeah,
4 of those guys are out there at once.
Yeah. If you're, depending on the extent of the injury, you'd hope.
They want to sneak and get to 12, then you use Bonner as a tight end.
Yeah, which they get that. I do think they like Bonner because of that, because he does offer some positional flexibility there, even though he's officially a wide receiver again.
And I get it. He may not have the long speed, but did you see him a little bit with the run after the catch?
Yeah.
He's got a little burst to him initially.
I'm telling you, I said this last year, and it didn't really play out because for whatever reason, but I think partially because we didn't have the quarterback play to get it done. I like him as a Jaheim Bell type that was used at South Carolina with Coach Satterfield.
I remember you told me that, and I was like, this is in the off. This is in the summer. You're like, oh, yeah, I just got done watching some South Carolina offense. I'm like, for what? Do you remember that?
Yeah. You're like, why? I was like, I want to see what Satterfield's going to do.
Yeah, I remember that conversation.
And I think there's obviously Bell went on to play for Florida State last year and had a good year. I think got drafted like in the 7th round. But, that's a guy who's, I think there's a skill set overlap with him and Bonner where it's a lot of receiving, kind of a tweener between a tight end and a wide receiver, but also can line up in the backfield and do some things for you. Like, I think Bonner could be a really interesting part of the offense.
It's interesting how 16, 18, and 19
got a lot of run.
They look a lot alike.
Physically.
Even though they look a lot alike catching and stuff, even though their body types are all different.
And people were getting real confused in the press box.
No, I'm just it was even like it's now Lloyd is easy.
Yes.
Like I know his gait.
Yep.
I know whatever, but I could see Bonner and Nair being confused until you see
Nair get out and run.
Nair run.
Yeah.
Like, because he's such a glider. Mm-hmm. But the type, right, just to the naked eye, yeah, I could see it. And I know, like Sam said, he was a little worried about the tight end room, but you saw, they use Echternock in line.
Yep.
We saw Smith Flores
make an incredible catch.
The little one-hander on the rub route.
Yeah, maybe the best catch of the day.
We saw Keelan Smith, who has some versatility.
Mm-hmm.
I like him. You saw Bork. You obviously saw Fidone. You saw Flint.
You've only got a couple
you're
guys.
You're gonna use Lindemeyer.
Yep.
I kind of like that room.
You've only got a couple guys in there that you look at and say, okay, I've got proven production there.
Yeah, and I'm of course biased when it comes to Borkature, but
we're not even talking about. There's a couple guys from this class that I don't know that they might play into this room. Whether it's obviously the highlight for a lot of people is Carter Nelson, but Eric Ingerson is a really nice player as well out of Papio. You've got some options there that, again, you've got a couple answers and then you've got a bunch of options, right? Fidone and Borkature you look at and you go, hey, those are the answers.
Lindemeyer.
Different skill set, but
yeah,
still an answer. You got 3 guys. You look at, okay, I know what these guys are. These are answers at that position. And then you've got probably, you mentioned like 3 or 4. I mentioned 2 more. You got a bunch of options there too.
And your OC's coaching that room now, so you're going to get the intricacies.
100%. Yeah,
that's the advantage of. And I remember when Coach Solich was assistant head coach, and I think they called him an offensive coordinator, but he's played an integral role, right? Yeah. So the advantage to that was we used to have these formations 91, 93, 94, 90, or 95, 97 where is pass protections and we'd get out into routes. Like we'd motion out of the backfield and we'd play in the slot or blitz protect. Like when your coach does that and understands the offense in its totality, you get all the nuances.
Yeah.
That I think that's going to benefit this tight end room immensely. And listen, I love Sat. He doesn't give me much because I think it's just his personality.
Yeah.
I try to mess with him and stuff. He looks at me like, I don't really like you. I'm glad you are nice to me. But I said this last year. Even everybody was hating and he was struggling on offense. And I'm like, you need his personality. You need his personality to get through this season because he's so tough-minded.
Yeah.
And he's loyal.
Yeah.
Right. Those are things you can't see. They don't manifest themselves like, statistically or what. But you need a glue guy's temperament on your staff, like a guy that's just not the wind picks up or he hears a few things or the temp changes and all of a sudden they're a different person. Like that's not always good for you.
Is he the coaching version of Heinrich Harburg's mindset?
Maybe. I love H2O.
Because because you heard Rule talk about this in the presser where he's talking about people coming to him with offers and like, hey, these guys are offering all this money.
Hey,
whatever.
That's real, by the way.
But then he goes, and it's not like it doesn't happen with my assistant coaches too, right? And like, is Satterfield that guy that he just?
Well, you heard Saban just dime himself out over Quinyon Mitchell.
Yeah. Like
you're like, wait, what did he just say?
Is Satterfield just that guy that he doesn't have to worry about, where he's just like, hey, we'll take care of him?
Yeah.
Like Harper.
I could see that. He's just so loyal. I don't know. I like him.
Just tough-minded, and it's like, hey, we're gonna get it done.
Yeah,
loyal guy.
We go have a ginger ale.
We'll wrap up the second hour coming up next here on Hurrdat Sports Radio.
We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
I don't know. He's a pretty explosive guy. I mean, he's 4'5", I think the biggest thing with Thomas is, at the end of the season, I said to Thomas, I was like, what a great fall we had, meaning him, like us, we had. He's like, what do you mean? He is. What I love about Thomas Fidone, man, he's never happy. He's never happy. And it's because he wants to be great. He wants to be the best tight end in the world. And he's always trying to get better. But my point was, coming off 2 ACLs, to get through a spring, a fall camp, and a season healthy, that's what he needed. Because now, instead of rehabbing this winter, he's lifting and he's in the 260 range at 4'5" with 35-inch arms, 34-inch arms. He's a physical freak, and he's loyal. Every team in the country is trying to get him to leave and go there. And the kid's he's Nebraska Cornhusker through and through. So I love that guy, and I love his approach. And it's still good for our players to see a guy who's so obsessed with being great and never happy. You know what I mean? But at the same time, to your point, he just had to have a true off season. He just had to have weightlifting where he's not rehabbing. And now I think you're starting to really see what he can do.
Wrapping up hour number 2 here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities, live on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. That's TB. I'm Ravi Lulla. Reminder, make sure you've got until May 12th to get out to Lawrence and Gardens to see Brick Live, Brickosaur's exhibit. They've got over 30 iconic dinosaur sculptures made out of more than 1.5 million bricks, surrounded by the prehistoric plants they would have been around when they were alive. It's a super cool exhibit. Make sure you get to lawrenceandgardens.org and get your tickets before May 12th when this exhibit will go extinct. That's lawrenceandgardens.org.
Every time he talks about Fidone, could you hear that beating?
Yes,
that's him hitting the
podium.
Yeah, because
sounded like he had like a little remix.
He's not making that up.
Yeah,
right from day one of those two being together. And Coach Wills even said this. Maybe it was public or private. They have some similar. He and Fidone have some similar personality traits.
Got a little edge to him.
Yes.
Yeah.
Highly competitive, and he's never satisfied.
Yeah.
So those are. I mean, who does that sound like? Those are things that he vibed with. So he was the perfect guy to come along at that stage, I think, in Thomas's career.
Mm-hmm.
To help to have a guy that could help channel his energy.
Yeah, because if that energy isn't channeled,
it's like fire in the forest versus the fireplace.
It can get reckless in a hurry.
Yeah, and
like it can get chaotic.
And so I think he's always vibed with him.
Yeah,
regardless how many text conversations and I want to do spring and I want to take this brace off, and they've been really good for each other. And he used the word that he's going to use a lot if he gets this program the way that he wants, and that's loyal.
Yeah, loyalty.
And it's just who he is. It's like whether you're in the media, whether you're on the staff, whether you play for him, like the trust thing is big. And when that goes,
it feels like he's one of those guys where, hey, if you want to move on, if you want feel like something's best for you, like he won't hold that against you. But the guys that choose to ride with him are like riding with him forever.
Yep.
I don't think he would hold it. I know I don't know him, but based on what he said, I believe he wouldn't have held it against Tony White if he moved on.
I told you, I think one of the catalysts for him putting a Nebraska football camp in North Omaha in a couple weeks here is, being reintroduced to a player or a youth that remembered him from his youth camp in Philly. This kid was in the 3rd grade.
Yeah.
He's like, hey, Coach Rule, do you remember me? Yeah, Coach Rule's like, oh, I mean, kind of. He goes, yeah, I was at your 3rd grade, your youth clinic.
Yeah.
And he said, you know what? Like, and he'll tell you, play for me, player for life.
Yeah.
Right? Like, that's just
said that a couple weeks ago.
And that's just how he wants to build the program. We're going to keep hammering this home.
Because it's the one thing that can transcend all the other nonsense.
It can defy the current
whether
mindsets and
unlimited transfers that just got ratified, whether it's the NIL, whatever it is. If you have a place that you love to be, if you have a place where they love you, and when you're going through 2 ACL rehabs, are like, no, you're our guy. We got you.
Yeah.
Like that trumps all the other stuff.
Why did they gravitate towards guys like Bonner? Just unselfish.
Yeah.
Hey, what do you need? I'll figure it out. And in return, they'll get your back, right? Hartzog has had to go through it. He's a hard guy not to like. Off criticism.
Yeah.
He would get so much. Well, he can't do this in coverage. He can't. We heard it all last year, right? You know what? He's being stretched pretty thin.
And look who keeps getting better, regardless of what's asked.
They asked him to go out, hey, get a little stronger.
Yeah.
This dude is so barrel. You see Hartzog without his pads on?
I haven't, no.
This dude is yoked.
Yeah.
I mean, and doesn't say anything, low maintenance. Like, that's where I want, like, that's the selfish part of me that cheers for the program.
Yeah.
Right? Not your kid, not your alma mater, none of that. Like, you want Nebraska to be really, really good. You can't function at a high level without some sort of camaraderie and chemistry. So I'm big, because I've seen it work where you have a lot of good players that have to play with each other and share.
Yeah.
Now, as the collection of talent grows, your culture has to be one in which, I say it all the time. I say it at the high school level. Some of these coaches around here are going to figure out it's more, and some already have. I just had a great conversation with one of the coaches that was traveling this weekend. It's more than just having good players.
Talent acquisition isn't the end of it.
It's not. It's just, as a matter of fact, at this level, it's very little of it.
There's like a bare minimum you have to meet.
And I know it's like, what are people going to say? Oh, look at that squad you had at Westside, blah, blah, blah. I get it, right? Like those guys were good, but amazingly unselfish.
Well, and not even necessarily the most D1 players on one team in the state.
No, true.
Right? So
yeah, there's that
like,
too.
Don't get me wrong, like, talented group for sure, but not any more talented just physically than other groups.
I just think they're going to have something to settle into when it's nut cutting time, and you get Rutgers, and you get Wisconsin, and you get Iowa, and all it just can't be about, well, we typically haven't won games like this before. It's got to be more, hey, you know what can I do to make sure that I don't let you down?
Well, and it can't be about either. It can't just be about going out and saying, hey, we've got more talent than you, right? Because Nebraska's had a lot more talent than a lot of teams they've been losing
Their
to.
recruiting classes would lead you to believe they should have been a lot better.
Yeah, that they've been losing to a lot of teams that they've out-recruited for years.
Yeah.
So it can't just be about that. I will say it does seem like the talent level at the quarterback position has upgraded dramatically, even with a guy that was already in the room.
And it does start with their mindset, though. I mean, that's a pretty cool. Just think about what they're going through at their age.
Yeah.
The off-malign guy that's staying the course.
Yep.
He comes out and could easily be the most improved. The other guy that isn't the guy that continues to just get better. The anointed guy that's the talented guy, you'd never even know by talking to him.
No.
Just goes to work.
He doesn't sound any different than the other two.
Nope.
Despite the fact that at least publicly,
when you get
been anointed.
When you get the makeup in that room right, you give
it's
yourself
a game changer.
You give yourself a chance.
And so I do want to talk. We've only got a few minutes here, so we can revisit this after we talk NFL draft. But I do want to talk about the guys that Sam kind of alluded to this, right? I was blown away by Heinrich Haarberg. Like, we'll get to Dylan, obviously, like, he's worth talking about, but I was blown away by the fact that when Haarberg was dropping back to pass, after the first few throws, I wasn't just waiting for something bad to happen.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't just waiting for him to make a bad decision or throw it into a bad spot or way overthrow somebody. It looked almost immediately like he just looked like a quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how else to put it. He looked like a guy, and I know you like Kalen's throw as the best throw of the day. I thought that
no, I'm not. You said you could make the case.
Yeah, I thought the throw to Barney in the for the touchdown was the best throw of the day.
Oh yeah, where he put that. How about
he put that thing in a shoebox on the opposite shoulder?
That's a perfect example of Barney stacking his DB.
Yeah,
like he's on top of him and he straightens him up.
Yep,
and gives room for that throw
for Harburg to make that throw
in the bucket. Like
that's a true freshman in Barney.
Yeah.
Coming in early and getting his DB set up so that he gives Harburg a spot to throw the ball. He knows the spot that he gave Harburg to throw the ball to.
And remember, Coach,
so he can turn quick and catch it.
Coach rules evolution as a lifelong learner, right? A guy that never really liked pat and go. Hadn't done pat and goes for 15 years.
Yep.
Right? That's a pat and go throw.
And his offensive staff is like, hey, we need to do these.
Yeah. And he's like,
all right,
okay, cool. Let me see how this works.
Yeah.
And just don't see those are the things that I like.
Yeah.
Because
it's really easy to get stuck in your ways.
Right.
Or hey, my ways work pretty good. Why don't we do it my way?
You have a track record.
My ways work pretty good. Why don't we do it my way?
Development. So, and I think, you know, people can appreciate those new ideas. And so for that wide receiving core, if in fact you get to, Bullock and you got Bullock and Barney and Nair and Lloyd and Coleman and Bonner and Banks, right? Like, and there's going to be some more.
Yeah.
You hope. But with those guys, with young quarterbacks, you have young guys outside of Banks. Mm-hmm. Even Nair is not experience-wise.
Not super experienced.
Yeah. Where you're playing, you're getting old together.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of the way that you want it when you're working out kinks.
100%. We will get to Dylan and Danny more in the 9 o'clock hour. Coming up next, we're going to talk to Justin Gaml. He is an NFL draft guy for the Sick Podcast. Want to dive into his thoughts a little bit. I'm curious, I'm all about quarterbacks because, I'm just one of those guys. I'm curious if
like everybody else in the state.
I'm curious if he thinks there's anybody outside of that first round that maybe has a future in the NFL. Some of the guys that got drafted later. I'll be sure to talk to him about that and much more as we return here on Hurrdat Sports Radio. You're listening on AM 590 ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. And coming up in hour number 3, you'll be on KFOR in Lincoln as well.
We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. Welcome to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
I won't ride the emotional roller coaster, and I won't let our organization ride the emotional roller coaster. When you make those decisions, you can't be off of what everybody else thinks and what they say. Those reactions are going to happen. Some of the most bold decisions and anything we've ever done, not just football, they always happen when it comes with a little bit of risk. And we're not going to run away from those things and those risks if we believe in it. And we certainly believe in it.
Kicking off hour number 3 here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities, KFOR in Lincoln, live on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. That's DB. I'm Ravi, Lulla. We're here at the Hurrdat Sports Bar and Grill, where from 11 to 7 today and tomorrow, you can come. We're having a donation drive for the victims of the tornadoes from this past Friday. Hygiene products, clothes, non-perishable food items. You can bring those to Hurrdat Sports Bar and Grill at the Lo Vista location from 11 to 7 today and tomorrow. Or if you can't bring anything, don't have time, you can just text Red Cross, all caps, one word, to 90999, and that will automatically do a $10 donation to the Red Cross that'll be distributed out to tornado victims as well. So make sure you help if you are able. Joining us now on the Hurrdat Hotline is Justin Gaml. He covers the NFL draft for the Sick Podcast. Justin, how are you this morning?
I'm good, guys. I'm sorry to hear about those tornadoes, man. I was watching videos over the weekend, just feeling for everybody out there in Nebraska. That is absolutely crazy, man.
Yeah, it was pretty wild. I mean, I've lived here my whole life. It's by far the craziest thing I've ever seen. So but luckily no, at least in Nebraska, no fatalities. So we got pretty lucky.
That's good to hear, man. That's beautiful to hear.
Justin, let's hop right into it. So I'm like everybody else. I'm quarterback obsessed. So I'm going to start there. Obviously, you got the 6 guys going in the first round, but then there was that huge gap before Spencer Rattler goes off the board in round 5, and then you kind of had a little mini run late. Is there anybody outside of those first round guys that you think long term you might like?
Yeah, funny you mention it. Michael Pratt, the last quarterback taken, goes
Tulane?
to Green Bay.
Yeah,
the Tulane quarterback. He goes to Green Bay in the 7th round. And, I mean, he is the prototypical kind of smaller, weaker-armed guy, but smart, efficient. a true pro. Like, there's not a lot that will wow you with physical ability, but it's also not terrible. You know what I mean? It's not just, Jake Browning level. It's actually, he's a solid quarterback, and I think he's the guy that down the road might surprise us. He kind of has that, like, Matt Flynn ability where, just like, Matt Flynn was at Green Bay as well, where you might see him surprise in a backup role and he gets a starting job somewhere else. I think he has that kind of potential.
Yeah. Just let me ask you something outside of the low-hanging fruit, because I was almost overhearing it the next morning, and we just heard the clip from Raheem Morris in Atlanta. Is it okay if Atlanta is saying without saying that, hey, we know a little bit more than you. Maybe something's wrong with Cousins. Maybe we're only going to eat $40 million at the end of 2025 if it's a 2-year experiment. Are they admitting more about the contract more than an indictment of Penix? Or how do you kind of rationalize what everybody thinks is just the obvious, that you don't do those kinds of things with that 8th pick?
Well, so what this said to me is they had a huge grade on Penix, right?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
We all thought Penix was a day 2 guy. They came out and said probably we have an easy first round grade on him. Factor in that Cousins only has a 2-year guaranteed, I believe.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. He is also, is he 40 yet? He's pushing 40.
35.
And he's
yeah.
Oh, okay. So, and he's coming off a Achilles injury. He's already not the most mobile guy. He's a little stiff. You know what I mean? So it's like, this is probably saying more like, we don't know how long Cousins will last, or we don't know how healthy or great he's really going to look. But if we, lose him, we have a guy that I kind of compared Penix early on in the process to Cousins, just as far as like their mobility styles, their throwing styles, the routes they like to throw. I kind of thought that was a similar comp. So when they took him, I'm like, well, if Cousins does go down, like, this is a guy that kind of could step in and fit those weapons, the Kyle Pitts, the Drake London. He knows how to throw to big targets. He knows how to run a pro system. Like, I thought it was a huge reach, but I do think this says more about, the Cousins availability issue more than just the big reach on Penix.
Justin, I'm curious, who do you think starts first, Drake May or JJ McCarthy?
I think they're both starting. I think they both come in and start
right away.
So yeah, right away. I think you take guys 2nd and 3rd overall, and there's no clear defined like upgrade over them right now on the roster. It's not like Mahomes coming in with Alex Smith where there was like, well, this is our guy. We know Mahomes will start, but Alex Smith is clearly the guy for the next year. Like, this is not that. I think both come in and play right away. And Penix, the Patriots drafted Jalen Polk and Javon Baker right away. You can tell they're loading up for their quarterback, trying to get him pro-style receivers that have run a full route tree, that are tough, that are physical, that can make big boy catches. It feels like both of these guys are due to step in right away.
Justin, are you comfortable with the picture that the Eagles are painting with Sirianni, like now or never, right? He's got 1 year to get this. It appears they're all in. They continue to draft like monsters. Their depth, it's young, but their depth, like, they're incredible. I'll get to the other team in the Keystone State because that's my favorite team. I got to start with Philly. And just the message that they're not only sending to the fan base, but maybe to Sirianni as well.
Yeah, I agree. And it's like, do you think they have secondary issues or what? Like,
jeez.
It's just crazy. And my buddy in Philly, Rich in Philly was texting me all weekend, like, who are they going to get? They're going to get cornerbacks. And he goes, this is just like the 2002 draft when they took Sheldon Brown and Lito Shepherd and one other guy. But he's like, bro, they're just stacking up on these DBs. And I'm like, that's because if you watched the Eagles last year, their defense was a mess. And, they've established their front 4. They have a big rotation that they can throw in there, but the secondary was an absolute mess. But I think Quinion Mitchell steps in right away. We know what kind of corner he is. And then Cooper DeJean gives them a lot of flexibility. I think with DeJean, you're hoping he can kind of be like a Kyle Hamilton type, where he can stay in the box, but he can kind of do it all if you need him to. So I think this is the make or break year for Sirianni. He's got to put something special together this year.
So before we move off too quick, how much of that because I saw the A.J. Brown contract and I was like, wait a minute, are you guys getting along or are you not? Like,
you pay me, I get along
the last
better.
third of your seat, like, if there was a malcontent, it was him, but he appears to get rewarded. So is that an indictment of Hurts and the chemistry there? Because the Brown thing didn't. I get it, super talent, but he didn't seem to like being there down the stretch.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. I am still trying to process how I feel about the Eagles right now too, because I'm like, who likes who? Is it just one of those things maybe where we're guys, like we shake it off in a few days or whatever, and we kind of forget about the past? I don't know. I'm trying to dissect it myself still, but I think I'm more wondering what they feel about Jalen Hurts first off, because I think it's more of a make or break year for him than we realize too. And then Sirianni, I think he's on the hot seat, but honestly, the whole Eagles as a whole is kind of a mess. But I do think A.J. Brown is their most important piece. Their receiving core is their most important unit. They got their defense established. Now I guess we just kind of wait and see and get our popcorn ready, because it's a mess.
Can you believe we're talking about the Eagles this way when like a year ago we thought
they were the darlings set up to
Jalen's on the come up, MVP candidate. That defense is unstoppable. They got weapons everywhere. And now we're like, I don't even know if the head coach and quarterback are going to be there next year. And I don't think we're wrong.
Right. And that just shows you how quickly things in the NFL can change, and how when a defense gets taped on an offense, how quickly things can change. And I think that Eagles offense it looked great that first year, but then, when you get to see something more than a few times, you can really adapt to it and make some change. And I don't think they had enough smoke for defenses, and they kind of got figured out. And now you got the coach and the darling quarterback on the hot seat, which is indeed pretty crazy.
Yeah, covering the Big Ten here in Michigan and doing broadcasts. I love Roman Wilson, not as much as I love the Steelers, but Peyton Wilson is an absolute monster. If anybody says Steelers, it's the way that Peyton Wilson plays. When you look at this draft and what the Steelers did, I get the Steeler way, but Khan is a newbie. They had a really good offseason. They had a really good draft. How good do they have to be to compete in this North, though, is kind of what I'm thinking.
Yeah, that's the thing. Is that division is so stacked. So you feel like, I looked at the first 4 picks from the Steelers. I'm like, oh, nice, like, beautiful. They're really trying to get better. And I'm like, are they still the 4th best team in that division? It's just, but every year we have this expectation for this division of like, here's our order. This is probably the best team. This is the second, and then they just, it's chaos. So I think they were probably one of the few teams in the draft where I look at and say, wow, they really established some things that they knew they needed to do to get better. So that's a plus. But I think their quarterback situation is what's going to hold them back. But Peyton Wilson is probably a 1-contract guy, but hopefully you get a really good rookie contract from him, because he's an amazing player, but I believe he's playing without one of his ACLs. So like, that's not ideal. Roman Wilson is great. He's kind of like a little Tyler Lockett, which
I thought they may make a move for him, or like an Ayuk or a Lockett. So I'm happy with the fit, and they seem to be able to draft wide receivers.
Yeah, I think they established some needs in the draft. I think they drafted really well. It's like I said, it's just their quarterback situation to me is not ideal. I don't think Wilson or Fields is starter caliber right now. And so, like I said, I always go into this division every year thinking like, this is the clear bottom, this is the top. They're all, but again, it's turned on its head every year. So they could surprise us. For the Terrible Towel fans, I hope they do, because I have a lot of buddies that are in Pittsburgh, and I feel like they've been in turmoil for a few years now. So,
hey, which North has the better division, top to bottom, AFC or NFC?
Oof. Oh, I think you got to go probably AFC. There's just so much. Like, the Browns are stacked. Yeah, I'd probably say the AFC. It just feels like they have staying power right now. They have some rosters that are really thick and like full from top to bottom. They can compete in the trenches. It's just a really good roster, a really good division.
Justin, let me ask you about the Xavier Worthy pick to Kansas City, because on the surface, it seems like they basically just replaced that Tyreek Hill role, and the Bills just let him do it. even though they're the team that the Bills can't seem to get past in the AFC. It seemed sort of self-defeating. It's like, yeah, you might move back to a spot and maybe get a guy you like in Keon Coleman, but you also just allowed this team, who finally looked mortal last year for stretches because they didn't have any wide receivers, to get a guy who can again tilt the field in a way that they haven't had in a couple of years. Like, how much of an impact do you think Xavier Worthy has immediately for this Kansas City team?
To be honest with you, my grade on Xavier Worthy wasn't a first-round grade.
Mm-hmm.
I watch him and I say, all right, he's not a bad route runner, but he's 165 pounds. He's not a chains mover. He's not a guy you have running over the middle. He is not a guy that, honestly, he struggled with his hand. He fights the ball a lot. He's not a ball winner.
Yep.
So it feels like he's such a one-trick pony that he doesn't really help your offense he's not a diverse player. So I felt like the Bills, when I saw the Chiefs take Worthy, I was kind of relieved because I'm like, okay, the Bills weren't going to take him. They don't need him. They need a guy like Coleman that's a physical ball winner, that can help Josh Allen, that can play physical on the boundary. It doesn't feel like to me like this Worthy pick is really going to do what people think for the Chiefs.
When you
like I said, I just think he's too one-dimensional.
How did you sift through Chop, Turner, and Verse when you're looking at edge guys, right? It's like one guy, the tape kind of lies in Verse, right? So we kind of knocked him. Turner, it was, well, is he as explosive as he tests? Chop Robinson is, God, there's so much there, but he should have done more. What was the film confirmation on these three as you kind of sorted through them?
For Turner, it was a lot like Will Anderson a few years ago, where it's like Bama didn't necessarily put him in positions to win a lot. He played way too many snaps. He lined up way too far inside way too often. It was like you have this freaky long edge rusher. You got to get him out wide. You got to let him pin his ears back. But he was such a good player and so did so many things for that Bama defense. They just didn't allow him to take off. And so, yeah, the tape wasn't as good as you want it to be, but I think you're banking on those traits and saying if a team or if we draft him and use him the same way the Texans kind of unleashed Will Anderson, will we get a similar product? With Chop, you're really just hoping you can motivate him and teach him how to finish. Because I think there was so much good tape there where the traits are there, the natural ability to pass rush is there. You're just kind of making sure hey, the goal here, right? It's to finish and to consistently be this quarterback hunter. And then Latu, I think you have this refined pro. He's probably not the athlete the other two are. I mean, we obviously know he's not. But I think what you're hoping for is kind of like a Trey Hendrickson, where you're going to overachieve and kind of outdo your own athletic ability and be this terror, even if we can't, call you an elite edge rusher. You're going to be that guy for us that still gets 10 sacks, but we kind of have to give you help. We kind of have to move you around a little bit, but you're still going to be that guy and you're going to be the pro, and we don't have to baby you and hold your hand. I think you're really sifting with these three traits versus how good you already are. And the Colts kind of banked on Latu being that guy that's already, extremely good. We just don't have the upside maybe Chop or Dallas give you. But when it comes to edge, sometimes you just want that sure thing. You want that guy that's going to be, someone you don't have to coach up, because sometimes that takes so long and then he's past his first contract. And now you're like, well, we did what we could, on to the next. So I think the Colts were just going for the guy that's really going to come in and give them immediate impact.
All right, I want to stay with the pass rusher because we didn't get to him, and I want to use him with this question. Who got the first, I didn't expect this guy to be here, best player available for a second contract? The Rams getting Verse or Bowers falling where he did to the Raiders?
I honestly think the Rams, when they saw Verse fall to 19,
it's kind of unbelievable, right? They're like,
yeah,
what?
Especially in such a weak defensive class, I think they're like, oh my God, we got a freaky, powerful dude. And I mean, they already have a pretty solid D line. They had Byron Young, the rookie out of Tennessee last year, that overachieved. And I mean, he kind of came on stronger than I think anyone thought. They got Kobe Turner, who was a day 3 steal. Adding Verse, I mean, now you kind of have an O-line that's young and fast and physical, or a D-line, sorry, young, fast, and physical. I think he fits them super well. He gives them something they kind of lacked before. And I mean, that was an amazing pick. And I couldn't believe how far some of these defensive players are falling myself. So when I started seeing them come off the board, I'm like, all right, here we go. This is what I was waiting for, because we've seen 6 quarterbacks and 12 picks. We've seen a record number of offensive players taken. So it was kind of cool to see where these defensive players fell.
Justin, how would you grade the Bears draft overall? They obviously had the 2 picks in the top 9, then just 3 more picks the rest of the draft. So they weren't able to address a ton of different spots, but obviously got the prize of the draft in Caleb Williams. And then I imagine they're super happy with getting Rome Odunze at 9 as well. How do you grade their overall draft in terms of what they needed and what they got?
Well, one of their picks was a punter, so I don't have much info on that because I'm sorry, I just don't.
But he was the Iowa punter. He got a ton of practice.
Yeah, exactly. He was the most accomplished punter in history. So Rome Odunze obviously is, I mean, you're adding him to Keenan Allen, Cole Kmet, and DJ Moore. What better situation for him? I mean, the cool thing is I think Odunze and DJ Moore are very interchangeable. They have similar skill sets, and they're both guys that they can play anywhere. They can do anything, play anywhere. Big physical dudes who can play above the rim, big catch radius for Caleb. That was such an ideal pick for me. I kind of thought they might go defense, but when I heard Rome's name called, I'm like, you're giving Caleb, this offense could really cook. The Yale offensive tackle, I mean, he's a monster, 6'5", like 325, but obviously he's coming from Yale. He's pretty raw at the position, but you're really banking on his upside and kind of getting a depth pick. And then the cool thing about Austin Booker, they got with their 5th round pick, I thought he was going to go a lot higher. I did hear there's some immaturity concerns with him, but this is a guy who's played football like not much at all. And he comes into Kansas. He's a long, freaky dude, so flexible, so athletic. Another guy, kind of like Dominic Robinson, where you're like, we're not expecting much from you, but you're so athletic. We know you're going to flash and pop in your first year. And hopefully, by year 3, we might have a real thing here. So it's cool that they're not only loading up for their quarterback, but adding young, athletic talent on the opposite side of the ball, especially at the pass rush position. With the limited amount of picks they got, you get the best punter in the draft, and then you get a bunch of other players that just fit what you want so well. So I think the Bears, this is the best situation for a first overall pick I've ever seen in my life. I think they could really overachieve. Sorry, no,
that's my fault, Justin. I maybe like their draft more than some of the other experts, but Harbaugh always strikes me as a guy that's crazy like a fox. I mean, they got Steele and Hart kind of back to back in that 5th round to help with depth on the back end, and then you get Ladd McConkey, who's going to own some folks. Alt was a given, but the guy, he's productive, and I know he's old and he's Harbaugh's guy, but Colson is a mature ball finder. Like when you look at the Chargers draft, what were your thoughts as you got a chance to comb through it?
I'm looking at it right now, and I think the cool thing was they're just stacking up good players, straight up good players. It felt like they did a lot of BPA, best player available. Even their 7th round pick, their second 7th round pick.
Johnson?
Yeah. I mean, Harbaugh knows him. Harbaugh knows what a freaky athlete this guy is. At 6'3", 215, the testing numbers he put up are insane. He didn't produce much at Michigan, but neither did their quarterback. The passing game was not that big of a thing there. But I think you look, and you can just go through and say, look, they're drafting good players. And their roster is filling out pretty nicely. And we say that every year about the Chargers, but you can tell with Harbaugh, there's a little bit of a different plan and a different feel. And he's kind of really making this like a meat and potatoes roster of we're getting big linebackers that are going to F you up. We're getting great receivers that are versatile. We got the left tackle of the future. We got even Cam Hart, the Notre Dame corner.
Yep.
A big dude who has tons of traits and can play press. He can play zone. He's done a lot. They're just getting good players. And I think this is a good start for the Chargers in the new Harbaugh era.
All right, PSA, because they were off malign, but I think they ended up getting the value set in terms of what they're being compensated for. Justin, you don't want your babies to grow up to be running backs or off-ball linebackers?
Oh, man. I don't want them to grow up to be running backs because running backs don't get paid anymore. So
apparently off-ball linebackers don't either. Like, isn't it amazing how
know.
maligned they are with the way the game has changed?
Well, you know what's funny is I was having this conversation with a buddy of mine recently, and we used to do a podcast together, but he's all the way in Connecticut, so we're on the phone, and he goes, what even is an off-ball linebacker anymore? Like, when you look at college, there's not a lot of true, just off-ball line. It's a lot of this, like, you're a big slot, or you're an overhang defender, you're kind of a safety, you're kind of a box player, you're kind of like, what is that? And then you look at some of the best linebackers in the NFL right now. Like Fred Warner played safety overhang defender in college. He wasn't even a real linebacker. And then, what's his name? Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah in
That's a good one. That's a good one.
I'm like, that was I don't even know what he was in college. He was a linebacker, but he was kind of a safety too. He played over the slot. He played everywhere. So I'm like, I don't know how you even go about drafting linebackers anymore because I don't even know what they are. College is completely transforming offensively, and it's making defenses change. So now, if you need an off-ball linebacker in the draft, good luck, because I don't really know what you're looking for anymore.
Justin Gaml of the Sick Podcast. Justin, we appreciate it. We'll talk to you again soon.
Thanks, Justin.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me.
We will be back. 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 You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
That was emotional. I fought back tears walking out the tunnel for the tunnel walk. Growing up as a kid, that's what I knew and that's what I watched. So being a part of it, you come out of the tunnel and you hear the song. It got heavy for me. So I'm just thankful for the fans coming out, and it was a fun experience.
We're back here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities, KFOR in Lincoln. Speaking of Lincoln, that's where you got to go if you want to go to the casino for Warhorse Sportsbook. You got the casino in Lincoln, or you've got Horseman's Park in Omaha. It's the best place to place your sports bets in the state of Nebraska. Got live, parlay, straight bets, prop bets. Just about anything you can think of, you can place bets on nearly every major sporting event at Warhorse Sportsbook. If you got any questions, go to warhorsecasino.com/sportsbook for a full list of house rules and details. That's Warhorse Sportsbook. No bets, no glory. As we hang out here on the Pillar Exterior stage, I want to return to the quarterback conversation in spring here, because we talked about Harburg, which I think rightfully so. That was what I was most stunned by, was his – I walked away from spring thinking, okay, if Harburg has to play this year, I'm not super concerned. I think you limit the upside that Arayola has, or you would limit the offense's upside that you get with Arayola, but I think you would be dramatically more comfortable with Harburg this year than you would have been last year, or that we were last year.
Yeah, if I had to and this is, I'm only on the second rewatch, but I think they all brought a little something different to. I think the one thing that, if I was just going to quick rank, I love the fact that Dylan went through. He found the matchups.
Yep.
So you could tell he's a guy that is accustomed to which guy out there do I think is better than the guy he's going against.
Yep.
So that's. Now, he was a little more predetermined, but he was so good with the ball most of the time.
And if your pre-snap work is good and your film work is good before that, you kind of can predetermine.
So the only downside to that is coverages will move, and they'll show you one thing and get into another. So, but there's plenty of time for him to learn that.
Yeah.
I thought with Kalen, he was probably the most. It seemed like he was the most pressured.
Yeah.
Even though I felt like the offensive line held up for the most part. I like the fact that he would climb the pocket.
Yeah.
Going through progressions, like front side to backside, I liked Harburg.
Yeah.
Which
is not something I would have said last year.
It was weird, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Like to go from.
And his mechanics look better.
Right to left, like he was doing, you could. He's been in the lab a little bit, so that was really, really good. The corner route that the little smash count, that was pretty, it was kind of a vanilla passing scheme. You get an over route, you get a backside drag or a crosser, you get a little stick route, and then they ran a lot of smash concepts to the front side. And right away when he threw that ball to Bonner, he knew the matchup.
Yep.
Right. It's like. No, conversely, if I'm looking at this as like a defensive guy, which is how I kind of do watch it.
Yeah.
I'm like, man, hold the hash. You can only on the smash concept. Don't sit inside. Like you can get back to the inside and play the post
easier.
You have no help on the corner route, and he has more real estate to work with. So
if he can push you inside, that gives him a ton of room to
right.
work back to the outside.
Right. And we there's two teams in the Metro that are very good on those. We call them, you can either corner routes or post corners. Very good with those poker routes. You know, and you know, I tell Teddy and Caleb, you know, you got to play it a certain way. Give ground until you have to break.
Yeah.
Right. We got cooked. I think North got us in 7-on-7. I think somebody got Caleb tough. And it was because you understand leverage. Now 7-on-7 is hard because you get time. But I think Champ got him on a you know, he gave up the inside. Bellevue West scored one.
Yeah.
Goodwater got one on us when he split the safeties. Hold the hash.
Yeah.
Because those concepts don't be in a hurry to get out of there. That's what just general rule of thumb. You know, there was another one where Dowdell, when he scored late, I think Lance thought I was being nitpicky. But I'm like, it's an upset. The corner came inside. To the nub set, you're the force guy. Like you need to keep that inside.
You got to keep the boundary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so
because if he gets sidelined,
I love the fact that initially on the cut, Dowdell put his left foot in the ground and got back vertical.
Yeah.
But if I'm a defensive guy, I'm like, how did he get back out to the outside against the nub set?
Got to keep his boundary.
Right. So you have to take all those little things. At least I do.
Yeah.
And I'm a nerd. Like that's why sometimes it's fun, but it's not fun to watch. You know, to watch scrimmages or practices or games with me. But the quarterbacks, it's about what I wanted. I wanted all three guys. Not for the sake of not saying there's not a quarterback battle, but for the sake of development.
Yeah, well,
because that's what I care.
Well, for the sake of what Coach Rule talked about, right? Yeah. So he goes in the press conference. He talks about, okay, you know, last year we needed 3 guys. We have aspirations to win national championships here. You're going to have to play at least 16 games. If they expand this thing even further, it's going to be more than that. He's like, yeah, you try and play one guy for 16 games.
It's hard.
It's really hard. You need to have guys that, and he said this as well. He wants the position to play well, right? It reminded me of when people, you know, talk about how I'm a Creighton homer and whatever, and they're like, oh, you're not happy with Nebraska. Yeah, I want basketball to be good in Nebraska, in the state of Nebraska, high school, college, NAI, whatever. I want basketball to be good in Nebraska. Yes, I have a preference. Like in the quarterback battle, I want Dylan Raiola to win the job.
Yeah.
He's the most physically talented guy. I want him to go out and win the job.
Yep.
Right? I want Creighton to be the best basketball team in the state. But I want basketball to be good. I want the quarterback play to be good. Harburg being good only makes Dylan Raiola better. Danny Kaelin being good only makes Dylan Raiola better. And guess what? If for whatever reason Dylan Raiola doesn't go out and win that job, then you don't think the world is ending because you have to put somebody out there that doesn't look functional. All 3 guys looked like they could run the offense on Saturday, and that to me was the biggest takeaway.
So I like the fact that when those guys got to the line of scrimmage and they had to see some pressures, because you could tell, I'm kind of speaking for him, it looked as though Coach White was getting a little bothered by not being able to do some of the little things that he wanted to do. So you started to see some pressure late from like Bear and Shavers, and you saw some cross blitzes and stuff. But for the most part, they were fairly limited. But I did like when quarterbacks came to the line of scrimmage, Dylan was really good at this, where he could get in and out of formations in motion. And he was, you know, he had a good grasp of that. You know, Danny running the 2-minute offense. Like, you don't get to do those kinds of things. And I'm watching. I don't know who took over the headset play calling duties, but there were sometimes Coach Satt would just let it go.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, like either somebody else down there has got it or they're turning it over
to the quarterbacks. That would be interesting if they were. Because that's the next level of development that I don't think we would have seen. I don't know.
They just weren't there, right?
Yeah.
So it's, and again, Coach Rule talked about, Fidone never, ever satisfied. And as a staff, he wasn't either. So he made changes and moved some guys around. And now I think, and he was honest, sat revs high. Sometimes that's not always good for your quarterbacks. I don't want his attention split where he can't manage the offense. So you go out and get a quarterbacks coach. Yeah. And so you can't undersell the ability to just want to go out and keep getting better and have the guys that you're helping get better not look at it as an indictment.
Yeah.
Because if
the opportunity,
if the coaches can do it, you better be doggone sure the players can do it. I mean, they just got another quarterback. I think Latif, he probably should have said yes by now. Didn't TJ commit? I think he's in.
I don't know if he's officially committed yet, but
wait a minute. I hope so.
But anyway, I will say,
wait.
There's an.
It's not official. Is it official?
Well, maybe.
We'll have to check on that in the break. I will say. So I texted you a question about the quarterback play, about Dylan specifically during the broadcast, which I'm sure you love getting texts from me during the broadcast. But
no, it doesn't. No, I can I can do that, especially if it's football.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm not gonna.
I can definitely.
I'm not gonna text you about like Indian food in the broadcast.
By the way, did you see my tandoori chicken? Didn't that look fantastic?
Looked pretty good. It looked pretty good.
I got this.
You know what? I'm going to call that a radio tease. I will ask the question that I asked you about Raiola on the other side here, because I think it's your biggest nitpick about him. I don't know if it's a nitpick, but I think it's your biggest criticism. The thing that I asked you about.
Oh,
the thing that bothers,
I got you.
The thing that bothers you the most. So
I got you.
Let's figure out if it's a big deal or not coming up next as we wrap up the show here on Hurrdat Sports Radio.
We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. Welcome to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
3-2 again. Langford swings it to high drive, deep right center field. Fairchild back. He's at the wall. That ball is off the wall at the 374 side. And Karam's toward the right field corner. Heim has scored. Langford around third. He is digging for the plate. No throw to the plate. He slides in with an inside the park home run.
And with it right side against Royce O'Neal. Right-handed dribble, switches left hand, pulls up on a 3-ball and strokes it. Anthony Edwards with his 4th 3 of the night. He's getting into the act. 21 for him. 76-73.
Rantanen steals it away, and Chushkin has it at the red line towards the net. Yeah! Benoboyville through the chapeau. His first career hat trick.
Wrapping up the show here on a Monday. Shane had to get his, avalanche in there.
Throw the French hat, the chapeau. Dude,
No,
it was 1-1.
we're not gonna be back. We're right
it was
here.
1-1, and Shane
I
was
got a little.
sweating bullets.
We're live here on AM.
Can you imagine Rangers abs?
ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities, KFOR in Lincoln, live on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. Real quick reminder. We're going to be here at Hurrdat Sports Bar and Grill to collect donations for disaster relief today and tomorrow, 11 a.m. to 7 p.m., collecting hygiene items, clothing, non-perishable food. All of that will be donated to Heartland Hope and Project Intentional for distribution to those in need. Or if you just want to make a quick text for a $10 donation to the American Red Cross, text Red Cross, all caps, one word, to 90999. That's Red Cross to 90999 for a $10 donation to help with tornado relief.
I was trying to get Sash to help with some clips back in. Shane, did you get that 15-minute clip from Coach Rule? Did Cam send that over to you? But anyway, she's like, hey, I'm not in studio. I'm in Blair helping with cleanup.
Yeah, they've been after it since about 6:30.
I was like, man,
the sports team has been. They're getting after it.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
That
practical application.
That's right.
I have not heard back from anybody.
Okay.
So the
only thing I've heard.
You turned your own mic off.
I
Shane.
did. The only thing I've heard.
The
only thing I've heard today is this.
That's cool that's all you've heard.
Spurtability in hockey. The Rangers and Avs have it.
That's cool. It's the only thing you've heard this morning. It's not like you've been producing a 3-hour radio show or anything.
Surprise, surprise.
So the question that I asked you, I texted to you at 12:21 p.m. on Saturday.
Uh-huh.
I go, when will we know if Rayola's feet are a problem or if his arm strength / talent is good enough that it just allows him to get the ball out that much faster because he doesn't have to get set?
Yeah. So that's the thing. That's the thing. And it drives me crazy because I can't ever really gauge it.
Because you don't know until you're in it.
Yeah, or you don't know until you need it. There was probably 1 or 2 throws where I felt like his foot, the pick that Bell had. I mean, if you're cheering for Dylan, you're like, oh, that's the receiver's fault. But really,
no, it was high, it was behind, it was too hot.
Yeah, and Dylan will eat that. It was like, that's on me.
He did eat it in the presser.
It's footwork.
Yeah.
That's just the ability to step to your target and put it on him. It's a man-to-man route, so you don't have to settle him down.
Yeah.
Just put him there. And then there was the one, now I'm being really nitpicky.
Yeah.
But
When you have that level of talent, you have to.
Yeah,
be.
you have to be.
Yes.
Right? It's like
Yeah.
this is just
You
who
can't
he,
just
this
look.
is this is just who he's gonna be.
You can't just look at it and be like, oh, he throws better than Jeff Sims.
There was
It can't be that.
There was the one where they were going to the south and he sailed it in the end zone. It's a whole throw, but he too much air, too much loft. Like that's one where you just want to see him put that front foot in the dirt and just drive that thing in there, and he'll be able to do that. He just hasn't had to because he's so naturally gifted.
So that's, I think, where
right. So you want to see the ones where he steps into even his deep ball, and so this is a lot like they're just quarterbacks who have can just throw a deep ball. He doesn't even really have to step into it. He can guide it and flick it, right? You remember 3 years ago at Friday Night Lights, it was deep. It was just accuracy after accuracy on deep ball. So he just is very, very gifted in that. The thing is, they threw the little bender to Bullock in front of one safety and behind another. Not sure you can make a living with that throw, not driving it in there, but his anticipation was so good
that he got in there.
It fit. Those are the things that you don't, like you said, you don't know if it's going to matter until it actually
until
matters.
you're in it.
Because you do see catches and throws like that in real football. So it's not like you can say, "Oh, that doesn't happen."
That's never going to work. Yeah, because it does sometimes.
You do, and the more competition you get, the more of those throws you have to make. Because not everybody's going to be open. You have to either throw guys open or you have to make a catch.
So I get my thing with Dylan is, and I'm not saying he is this guy, and I'm not even going to say the name you think I'm going to, but I'm not saying he's this guy, but it's kind of the same concern, if we want to use that term, that I had a little bit with Caleb Williams coming out, where he got off schedule so often that I'm like, okay, can he be on schedule, right? So on the throws like the slant to Bell, he's so used to just flicking it before he gets his feet set, because there's a lot of times where that is advantageous, right? But when it's not, can he still do things?
Yeah, that's the thing. I think
mechanically,
those are just reps. And again, you don't know until you know. But when you just talk about being naturally gifted for a position,
it's all there.
Arm angles, arm slots. Now, sometimes when you can do that and it comes so natural to you,
it can make you lazy.
And you don't complete the short throws. But you said something off air. I almost fell off the stage. It's just the delivery, right? What'd you say off?
So I was so relieved that every time they were throwing a screen or a swing pass, it didn't feel like the world was ending, right? Because and this goes back years. Whether
the worst screen team in the country.
What were they throwing?
Nobody was doing that. No, this goes back. This is not just last year. This goes back to Adrian. This goes back further than that even. But every time.
Remember, how long have we been saying, why can't Nebraska be a screen team? Or Coach Riley worked it.
Or complete a swing pass. I mean, how many times were you just like, oh, dear God, I hope he's in front of the line of scrimmage, so when this is inevitably misthrown, that it's not a fumble.
It was giving me anxiety.
It was like I'm having every time for the last, 6 years, they've tried to throw a swing pass. I'm like, please be in front of the line of scrimmage. Please be in front of the line of scrimmage. Please be in front of the line of scrimmage. Because I knew it was going to be misthrown. I knew it was going to be incomplete. And I was just praying that it wasn't going the other way on either a pick six or a fumble. And then yesterday, after two throws, Saturday after two throws, I go, oh, they can complete those now.
I'm just watching. I'm sorry. I'm distracted. I'm watching Cooper DeJean highlights.
Because he
is so good.
I'm just going to keep going. Because those are supposed to be routine.
Yeah.
Right? A swing pass is, and it's a hard throw. Don't get me wrong.
It is.
It's a challenging throw.
It is.
If you're a high major Division I quarterback, I'm going to need you to be able to complete that. Is that asking too much?
I just like the fact with those smash concepts. And you're just talking about basic offensive concepts.
Yeah.
I got to hold the hanger or the adjustment player. I'm going to run the stick behind him. I'm going to run the corner behind that. There's conflict. There's just going to be natural conflict on defense.
Yeah, you're making them make choices.
Yeah, you're in a bind.
Yeah.
Just to see that executed over and over again, it's like
the most encouraging thing. It wasn't the deep ball to Jalen Lloyd. It wasn't the sick throw that Harburg had to Barney for the touchdown. It wasn't any of that stuff. It was the fact that it looked like they could consistently complete routine passing concepts.
Yeah.
All three of them. Like that was my big takeaway. It was, okay, I might prefer Rayola. The upside's best there. I can see a world in which Harburg can come in and be functional and get the offense moving. Kalen, you probably want to give him a little more time, but I was really impressed in his progression from what we saw last year at Bellevue West. But all three of them, I thought, okay, you could put those guys in a game and they can complete the routine passes when it's 2nd and 5 or 3rd and 6 or whatever. And last year we go, oh, well, I hope they can run it twice and go for it on 4th.
Yeah.
Instead of you say, hey, little quick out here or a little swing pass where you take what the defense gives you. Because that's the biggest problem with not being able to complete that stuff is then the defense doesn't have to honor it and they can take away the things you actually are good at.
Yeah. And I told you, like, statistically stuff that Coach Parker said about Iowa, about what they're willing to give up.
Yeah.
One of those aforementioned is in there because it's completed at such a low rate.
Yeah.
Like, you'd be surprised.
And if you can actually do it, you can take advantage.
Surprise.
If you can do it, you can take advantage of good defenses, in which case then they have to cover it.
If you can be patient.
What are we talking about? Just don't get greedy.
So 15 times a practice, we would say to our guys, rally to that. Don't go cover it. Rally to it. You can always come up and make a play because it's eye candy. You see it out there. You know he's open.
Yeah.
And what does the fan say? Throw it to him. Just swing it out there.
Yeah.
They're going to concede that. Most people just aren't willing to do it, and they complete it at a fairly low clip.
Well, and even if you complete it once, okay, are you willing to do that 6 times?
Yeah.
Are you willing to do that until are you willing to make the defense adjust to it? Thankfully, we've got Steven here, my actually guy, who comes in and lets me know that you can actually throw it behind the line of scrimmage. It has to be a forward pass. It's Steven.
He may be my favorite.
If you didn't know what I mean,
he may be my favorite.
Actually, it can be behind the line of scrimmage.
He said at the risk of being annoying. Bless your heart.
Well,
Steven.
actually, yes, Steven, I know. I said it wrong. I don't know if you know this. This isn't scripted. We do 3 hours a day. Most of it's not planned. That's the show for today. Love you, Steven. We'll be back.
I do.
DB loves it when people put me in my place. We'll be back tomorrow with more Hurrdat Sports Radio.
See you. Have a good day. Love you.